Well, good evening everybody. Let's get a few things sorted here. Just waiting on Sleeping Warrior, who'll be a minute or two. And Red Pill Philosophy in around about 15-20 minutes, hopefully. I'm just going to check that the stream's working. It looks to be working fine. Right, let's see how many people we have in. We have 34 people in, that's pretty ace to start with. A few shout outs. We've got Doc Michael in, we've got Paige in, The Plain Truth, nice to see you in, Saucy London, Jimbo, nice to see everybody here. Now, as you can guess, there's a number on screen for Sleeping Warrior, and that's his subscriber count, which has actually gone through the roof today. And that was because of a shout out from no other than Eddie Bravo, and he did so on his Instagram account. So he pasted a link to the Red Pill Philosophy's channel, and yeah, consequently a lot of people are seeing the video that he did whilst on the Globe Light tour, which was pretty cool. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend that you go and see it. It's been mirrored in quite a few places, I have to say. Oh, and his subscriber count's just gone up again. Look at that. He is motoring right now. So I'm probably expecting Sleeping Warrior over the next week or so to break the 4,000 barrier, which would be superb. Not good for me, because then he might be able to catch me, and we are having a bit of a competition in that respect. But you know, he deserves it. He absolutely smashed those quote unquote scientists when they took him on. So let me see if I can get a hold of Tony right now. Let's see if I'll give him a call. Let's see if he's around. Not yet. I wonder what he is up to. He did say 2 minutes. That was 5 minutes ago. So what he's doing is he's leaving me hanging on here. Nice to see you in, Arwin, as well. Nice to see you in. Professor Phil Bellranty, I would like to debate Sleeping Warrior on your channel. Would you be interested in hosting it? Absolutely. Yes, I would. Not a problem for doing that. Yeah, as for Arwin, your P900, I hope you're going to look after it very well. It's kind of like an iconic piece of equipment, really, let's be honest. Right, who else have we got in? Ian Adams, nice to see you in. Under No Pressure, wow, you know who that is. Do you know who Under No Pressure is in the chat right now? I'll give you 3 guesses. Here we go. Toady. I was just speaking to Anthony 2 minutes ago. Oh, was you? Okay, well, let's see if he's around. Let's give him another call. Here he is. Finally. We have the Sleeping Warrior. So he was talking to Toady.
Pardon?
He was talking to Toady. I've been informed. He told me.
You mean just now?
Just now, yeah. He's just sent me a Skype message.
Yeah. Toady seems to think that he can pick and choose the gravity that he accepts to be true, even though that means that you're... Well, his last message to me was... Are we live, by the way?
We are, yeah. We're live. I've been holding the fort down for the past 5 minutes, waiting for you to join.
I'm just trying to catch up, kicking the dog out and locking up and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So go ahead.
So I asked him, do you accept that gravity is not a force? It can't actually cause anything. If not, why not? And he says, I don't. happy to discuss it. Although you are on Ranty Show talking about are you going to be on Ranty Show talking about your victory in the streets earlier this week? And I was like, so you think gravity is a force? And he said, well, I'm a pre-1920s glober and firmly believe in Newton and his force that I can use and calculate with and see the effects of. I have yet to be convinced by Rumpus and the others about Mr. Einstein's theories. So my response was, but it isn't a force. That is your current science, and you can't dismiss that if you believe it's a ball. The thing is, they seem to think that gravity is like, you can choose the gravity that you accept. You can't choose it. If we live on a sphere, you have something called science, and science gives you all the answers. You can't pick your pre-1915 position, because that means that you reject the current position. And the current position, of course, is your so-called science. You can't pick and choose. You either accept the official narrative, or you don't accept it, but that makes you a heliocentric denier, because you can't dismiss Einstein. And I'm not saying that I agree with Einstein. I'm not saying I disagree with him. I'm saying that gravity is not a force because Einstein says so. Who are anybody on the ball Earth side to question Einstein? He is your current science. You cannot pick and choose. You either accept all of the official story, or you deny your own science. You cannot have it both ways. I was going to read a quick paragraph from Scientific American. It was the document that I cited in Liverpool against these two numpties. It's the one to do with the direction of down, when she was asking me what's my explanation for that observation of time dilation. And I genuinely thought she was asking me to explain it. But when I realised that she wanted my own personal opinion, of course, time doesn't dilate. But that is the answer I gave her. I'm going to read the paragraph that's relevant from the Scientific American document that I read. I'm going to aim it at Toady, because Toady thinks that he can accept a pre-1915 position. He's not convinced by Rumpus with explanations about Einstein, etc. Rumpus isn't the authority, Einstein is. But this is what the article reads. It says, the morphing of space and time is not just the stuff of exotic physics, Dean. Toady. It governs the motion of any falling objects. Baseballs, wine glasses, expensive smartphones, Toady's smartphone. Things that slip out of your hand accelerate towards the floor because Earth's mass warps time. That is literally what causes, apparently, things accelerate towards the floor because Earth's mass warps time. That is telling you in your face that Einstein is your science. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with science, but I am saying that you can't pick your pre-1915 position, because that's not what is science. You have to accept everything that science tells you. You can't disagree with it, because if you do, then I'd like to see your evidence that goes against Einstein and debunks Einstein, because you're a heliocentric denier. You're a heliocentric pusher. You guys push that we live on a sphere. This is black and white, your position. It literally says, and I'll read it again, it says, baseballs, wine glasses, expensive smartphones, things that slip out of your hand accelerate towards the floor because Earth's mass warps time. It's not a force. Literally isn't a force. So stop picking and choosing it, guys. Gravity's not a force. You have to accept that Einstein is your explanation, and things fall out of your hand and accelerate towards the floor because Earth's mass warps time. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But this is the nonsense that you guys have to accept. And we're right to question it, because it is nonsense. Everybody knows it. We know it. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Earth's mass warping time is not the reason why phones fall to the floor. But according to your stupid narrative, it is. Who would I be to question that if I were on your side? I can't question it. I have to adopt it. I have to accept it. I have to embrace it. I have to dance around the campfire, singing Kumbaya, and Einstein's name dripping off my tongue. Yeah, well, you don't get to choose. If you believe we live on a ball, Toady, friends, that makes you have to accept Einstein is your explanation for gravity. Earth's mass warping time is why things fall down.
So we have a question from Secret G. He says, and to be honest, it's it's barely worth even asking, because essentially what you're doing is you're begging the question here. And how are we supposed to know? Please ask Tony, what shape will a celestial body be to warp space-time? Nah.
What shape will a celestial body be? What?
To warp space-time.
I have no idea. Why would I know anything about that? All I'm doing is pointing out to you morons that you can't maintain a pre-1915 position just because you make more sense. That's as ridiculous as Sean Little G. Sean Little G doesn't accept Einstein because basically he admits that he doesn't understand it. That's okay. That's at least it's an honest position. It's stupid, but at least it's honest. I can accept that he doesn't understand it, right? Because nobody really understands it. It's based in mathematics that's got equation after equation of nonsense. And of course it's not the reason why objects fall down. But you have to accept it, because it is your science. So all those out there struggling with this perception that gravity is or is not a pre-1915 position or whatever, it isn't. It's Einstein. You have to accept it. You have to dance around the fire, singing Kumbaya with Einstein dripping off your tongue. If you don't accept Einstein, there's something fundamentally wrong with your religion. It's like believing in the Bible and accepting creation and God and all that, but saying I don't actually think it's God. I reckon it's somebody else altogether. It does the same thing as God, but it's not actually God. We'll call him the devil instead. That's literally what you guys are doing if you don't accept Einstein.
There's a guy in chat. You might have seen him around. To be fair, I've only ever seen him for the past 3 weeks or so. So I don't know if his credentials stand up. But Professor Phil Bell, have you seen him around?
Yeah, he claims to be a professor, and he said, "Check out my most recent video. I am a professor." So I did. I went to his channel. I looked at his first video. But actually, what we'll do is, Ranty, let me screen share and I'll pull it up because it's glorious.
Well, just one thing, just before you go on, he's just challenged you to a debate on this channel if you're up for it, with me hosting it. He said,
"Join the panel now. Let's do it. Let's do it right now." Just before we do, Ranty, let's just let me get my screen share on. Display one. I think that might actually come through as a black screen. Do you see this?
I see us.
You see the Skype call, yeah?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So he challenged me to go and look at his channel. So I did. And he claims that he's a university professor. And I thought, okay, let's have a look. So I got 23 seconds into this video, as you can see. And the first thing he says, physics, introduction to orbital mechanics. What does orbit mean? So he's presenting himself in a suit, and this could be a room. I mean, it's obviously a room. Like, you can see the reflection of the light. But I'm not being funny. I went to university many years ago, and this is kind of what I did back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was at college. This is not a university setup. If this is a university setup, I'd be gobsmacked that this is a real university setup, because they don't have written things on boards anymore. It's all done with OHPs, not even OHPs, projectors with computer generated graphical stuff like PowerPoint presentations and stuff. So I don't believe that this guy really is a professor. But you're welcome to join the call, sir, and I would love to challenge, because the first thing I asked him was, well, rather than describe what an orbit is, demonstrate it. Let's see the demonstration of an orbit. We know what an orbit is. They tell us stories, lovely stories, really fantasy-based stories that could be a Marvel comic, discussion, debate, conversation. The illustration is beautiful. It doesn't exist. So describing something like Narnia, lovely. We can all talk about Narnia and how much the snow weighs and how the snow forms and all that. But unless you demonstrate what Narnia is and you show us an orbit, demonstrate it, then it's not an orbit, it's just a story. And as I explained, we could repeat orbits on quantum levitation. We can do on small scale what looks like an object not touching anything but orbiting, and we can do that. We can recreate that. Okay, it's only small scale, it's in a lab, but this guy's teaching us what orbits mean, right? And he's doing it in what he claims is a university environment. That is not a university environment. So I don't know how old this video is, but you are welcome to join the panel. Let's do it right now. Please provide your email address to Ranty in the chat, and let's get this conversation started. Let's do it right now. No prep, just do it. Within 2 minutes, I expect to see you in the call. So come on, let's get on.
Well, he's just responded saying that, sorry, he's at work, but next time. But we do...
Oh, how convenient. So challenge me to a debate, and then when I drop it and say, right, come on, then let's do it. you're all of a sudden inconvenienced by work, but you're able to be in chat. Really? I call bullshit. You are not a scientist or a lecturer. That's not a university environment. I'm not sure what environment that is. Is it? Looks like it might be night school or something like that. Maths maybe like a GCSE resit or something like that.
Okay, well, before we go any further, let's just... there's been a couple of people responding in chat. One from Gleam, so yeah, I quite respect Gleam, and he says that he 100% is a manager of an Indian space agency launching rockets for the satellite train. He is legit, and he will vouch for him. And Carolyn Gutman Day essentially says a very similar thing too. So before we go saying that he isn't who he says he is, it's possible he could well be.
Well, let's see it. Let's see if he can... the proof of the pudding lies in his ability to defend the accusation that he's not. So let's see it. He claims to be in work now, but he's challenging me to a discussion. Well, I'm here. I just find it lovely and convenient that all of a sudden, when challenged, he's not able to present himself after challenging me.
So, I don't suppose you've already noticed, but your subscribers have just broke 3,600.
Not really. I had noticed that there was a massive surge because I noticed my inbox was saying X had subscribed, Y had subscribed, Z had subscribed, and I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, normally, like, I get 1 or 2 a week, like, it's like I've been a slow dribble for ages. But all of a sudden, overnight, I ended up with like 200, and I was like, something's happened. Didn't know what had happened, but something's happened. Now, I noticed that Red Pill Philosophy had mirrored it and put my name on it, and all that was good, and I assumed it had come from Red Pill Philosophy, but I got told it was to do with Eddie Bravo Instagram sharing it. Shout outs to Eddie Bravo. Yeah, I've gained about 400 subs in the last 24 hours, a combination of Bravo and Red Pill Philosophy.
It just goes to show you the power of having a big platform come and shout you out, especially somebody like Eddie Bravo and Red Pill Philosophy, obviously, but you're sort of well known in that sort of circle anyway with Red Pill. But I do imagine you'd have still got a few subscribers from him, but I think the big one was obviously from Eddie Bravo. So big shout out to Eddie Bravo for doing that,
I think it's I don't know which is the bigger ripple in the pond. Is he on the call, Chris?
Chris is on the call, but he's just at Home Depot. He said he'll be home very shortly, so as soon as he's home, he's going to join. So he's in this call now. He just needs to join.
I'm just not looking for the bit where I can knock it off. There we go.
So, yeah, the Global Eye Tour. I mean, yeah, it's all stemmed from that. I mean, do you want to give us a brief rundown of what you actually, how you think it went? I mean, were they the only people you spoke to on the day?
To be honest, I think Flat Earthers are missing a massive opportunity here because he isn't getting the momentum or support that I thought he would have got. Now, obviously, partly that's to do with YouTube not even allowing us to cross-pollinate anymore. But really, like, the Flat Earthers really should take it as an opportunity to get out there. I mean, look at Del, for instance, today. He went I don't know where Del lives relative to where he ended up today, but Del turns up on the scene. And rather than go there and do a bit of, like, the good work, doing something positive, all he did was start picking chunks off him. And I'm like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get out there and show people, like, hey, we can challenge this stuff, and show people how to do it? I mean, I remember the first couple of videos I ever saw of Del on his doing street work, and I thought Del was ace on the streets, the way he presented, and that's really what we should be doing. We should be taking advantage of the Global Eye Tour and going out there and having conversations with people, because at the end of the day, it's there, it's on a plate, it's being done for free, and it is the opportunity for people like myself, like Ranty, to go out there and mingle and just see what happens when you start talking to people, because you don't know who you're going to be talking to. It's scenery from YouTube, and you're not getting like YouTube trolls. You're actually getting normal people. They could be teachers, they could be unemployed. It doesn't matter what they are, but you're getting normal people, and just talk to them. And if you want to go in there like I go in there and start challenging them, that's an opportunity to do it. If you want to go there and just chat like Jason does, where it's non-confrontational and he's not trying to start a debate or a discussion, he just wants to talk. We should be jumping all over this, and I'm surprised he's not had the momentum that he gained last time round. I would say that he's struggling because YouTube's got this censoring thing going on. But we should all go out there, literally support the guy, support the tour, have conversations, and just ask people, do you think gravity is a force? I mean, it's the easiest one to ask. It's a massive glaring opportunity for us on our side to do exactly what we should be doing, really. And I don't know why we're not supporting the guy more. We should be out doing this. We should be getting out there and asking questions. Just start with, do you think gravity is a force? And then see where the conversation goes. Everybody knows it's not a force now. We've been beating that drum long enough so that everybody knows that it's Einstein's bendy space-time. That's nonsense. We know it's nonsense, and it's the explanation for why your mobile phone, it's the deck. But that's where to start. Come on, Flat Earth. We need to go out and have a conversation with people on the streets and take advantage of it, because he's coming to a city that's not too far from you. Exploit it. Get on it and join him.
The best channel to see this live, I would imagine, is probably Jason of the Didsbury family. Would you agree? Because he's putting content out every day, isn't he?
Yeah, Jason of the Didsbury family has a decent phone. He's got a decent microphone. He always seems to get a decent live stream up and going. I mean, I tried having I thought live streaming is dead easy. It's easy on a PC. It's not that easy when you're out on the streets, because you need to have a good signal and you need to know how your phone works. But listen, Jason of the Didsbury family, go and literally open up a new browser, go to his channel, subscribe, notify, and at 1 p.m. British summertime every day, he's usually online around about that time. Can't guarantee it is, but at the minute he's going to be online, and he's going to be out there talking to people. His quality of stream is really good. Last year, it wasn't as good as it is now, but he's learnt from, and we all do, he's learnt from his previous experience, and he's upped his game. And I'm gobsmacked that he's not had the support or not had the support so far that the guy should be having, because it is our opportunity to go out there and engage the public and see where it goes. So what if you get beaten a little bit by somebody that happens to know more than you? At least you've come up with something that's credible as a response, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be flogging a dead horse here. If the Earth really is a ball, and there really is evidence out there that shows that we are bending and curving and all this stuff, I want to see it. And if somebody can come up with something and says, oh, you need to see the such and such a paper, that's what I want to read. And so far, I mean, I'm just shocked. It really, flat earthers, if we are going to start questioning the authorities, we need to question it. And the way to do that is, YouTube's obviously not working for us. Why not get out on the streets with him? He's coming to a city near you. Jump on and have a chat to him, support him. Even if you don't agree with him, just go on and support him. Don't do what Dell did. Don't turn up and start tearing a strip off him because blah blah this and blah blah that. If you're going to make the effort and go down there, engage the audience, the public, talk to them. Honestly, it's a massive opportunity for us, and I can't believe that it's not been supported as what it should be, really, because I don't know, I think everybody likes to watch Flat Earth from the armchair. Nobody wants to get down and dirty, and I get that, I understand. But we all need to do a little bit, and we really should support this, because there should be more of us out there. Anyway, I've had enough of preaching of that now. I've done my plug for Jason's, but yeah, it's a really good opportunity, and we should embrace it, because it doesn't come along very often, and it shouldn't really be down to one guy in his van. It should be like everybody's got like a local cluster of what's going on. YouTube's clearly not working, is it? They're managing to divide us now to the point where new people, I'm seeing new people, just never even seen them before, but they're on our side, but we're just not getting the chance to pollinate across channels anymore.
I kind of spazzed out there for a minute when you mentioned something about Dell. Did you say Dell actually turned up and met the Globlightor?
What do you mean you spazzed out?
I sort of was thinking of other stuff when you were talking about that. So I kind of...
Yeah, Dell turned up, and rather than... I mean, I don't know where Dell lives, but he was in Glasgow today, wasn't he? And Paisley's not too far from Glasgow, I believe. So I think he's gone across towns to end up into where Jason was. I don't know the exact geography, it doesn't matter, but my point is that Dell turned up. And rather than turn up and do some positive, good stuff, all he did was turned up to criticise and attack, based on what he thinks. Oh, you're claiming I'm divisive. Well, let's be honest, Dell is divisive. He's very divisive. I used to love watching Dell when he was doing his street activism, but when he turned up today, rather than support the guy, he was very, very critical. Well, that's alright, you're entitled to your opinion, but there's a time and a place, and the time and the place is not to criticise him personally whilst he's on the streets with the people. Surely the time to criticise him is to challenge him, to talk to you at some point, but not while he's in the middle of his spiel. There is a time and a place, and what Dell did today was not the right time, and it wasn't the right place. but he'll get support from the ballers just because it creates drama. And I don't think there's any flat earthers apart from the Beyond Belief, for example, that'll support him on that, because he shouldn't be attacking him by person or attacking his person there and then while he's in the middle of doing his thing. Get it? If you really want to speak to him that strongly, Del, go on his channel and speak to him. Send him a message. But while he's in your town centre somewhere in the middle of Scotland, and you've gone that way in the car or the van or whatever, you've gone there to see him specifically, why on earth are you not supporting the guy? I was shocked when I saw his attitude. It's really, really... If Del's not divisive by doing what he did today, he absolutely is now.
Well, if what you say is true, I've got very little respect for Del if that's what he's done. Essentially he does that himself. He goes out and he talks to people on the street. It's exactly the same as what the Globe Lie are doing. It seems to me if he's done it, it's obviously just to try and get some content for his channel, because he doesn't have any.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I mean, listen, I don't necessarily agree with everything that, for example, Nathan does, but I wouldn't come on his show and start attacking Nathan personally whilst he's on his show, because I don't see the benefit of anybody doing, like, attacking personal stuff, like, while they're in the middle of doing their thing. I wouldn't attack Arwin personally on his show. Everyone knows that me and Arwin don't always agree on everything, but it doesn't mean I'm going to attack his show just because I don't agree with some part of him. Arwin's generally doing good things. Nathan's generally doing good things. I'm pretty sure there'll be people out there that agree that Del's generally doing good things. But to turn up whilst he's on the Globe Lie in the middle of a town centre in front of the public while he's got a big audience and start questioning and challenging him because he thinks he's divisive and all this, I mean, you may as well just put a hat round and get everyone to start chucking in the small change for Del, like a cash fund for Del, because it was like, what are you doing? Get out there and support the guy and talk to people with him. Support the guy. You don't have to agree with everything he says. You are entitled to your views, but you don't need to attack him whilst he's in the middle of doing his thing. Get him in private whilst he's not doing his thing. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I've not seen it. I mean, I saw a part of it earlier where he met Mark Sargent. So Mark Sargent flew in and he picked him up from the airport, apparently. Did you see that part?
When who met Mark Sargent?
Jason. No. Jason, the other one.
Robin.
Yes, Robin.
I've seen that the video was up, but I've not watched it because I've just been busy doing other things this afternoon. But I am aware that Mark Sargent has entered the building. But yeah, it's just shocking that there's support for the Globe Lie tour isn't as much. I mean, even if you disagree with it, it's like it's an ideal opportunity for people that are 50-50 in their. If you've got any courage in your convictions that the Earth might not be a sphere, you kind of owe it to Flat Earth to go out there and support the guy, because he's given a platform that's his own time, it's his own effort. And I've got no horse in this race. It doesn't matter to me whether it works or whether it doesn't work. Otherwise, but it does matter if we're going to join. If we're all going to join and support this question of authority thing, because it matters.
Hey, is that Red Pill?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing good. How are you both?
Just talking about Del joining the Globe Lie tour today. Did you see it on Jason the Dispary's channel?
I did not see anything, bro.
So Del's got every right to have his view on this topic, but it doesn't. For me personally, joining the Globe Lie tour just to attack the guy that's doing it because the guy that's doing it doesn't agree with him on something. There's a time and a place to do that, and it's not whilst he's in the middle of his spiel. I wouldn't join Nathan's channel and question Nathan about some personal part to something Nathan might have said to me. I'd have done it privately. Same with Arwin or Ranty. If there's something that's going on that's personal, I wouldn't have done it in the middle of his show. But for some reason, Del turned up and he starts attacking Jason because Jason said that he's divisive or he's this, he's that and the other. Who cares? It's just drama for him to get more kind of views. I don't know what's going on. But really, the Globe Lie tour, the bigger picture, I'm gobsmacked that Flat Earthers are not out there and supporting the Globe Lie tour, because he's got a platform there that's on a plate for us to go out there and just talk to the public. I mean, I was lucky the other day. I had the two guys from university, and I had a really good back and forth for them, and I was lucky. But you're normally going to get the average Joe Blogs that's probably either on his dinner hour or he's not even in work at the moment, or kids from school or whatever, and you're just going to get normies. I dropped on. I got two really good, interesting people that I could have a good, positive back and forward with, and I was lucky. But Jason admitted that he wouldn't really want that. He wouldn't want that level of discourse. That's what I'm here for. I want to see that discourse. And I knew, Jason said to me, he said, like, I know that was a bit of a waste of time from our perspective. They're never going to think that the Earth's a ball. They're never going to think the Earth might not be a ball. I said, no, but I said, everybody watching will see that we can actually challenge the official narrative, the current rhetoric, simply by asking the right questions, phrased in the right way, so that we don't swear, we don't get ad hom attacks, we don't lose our credibility as an impolite, rude, aggressive, whatever. We don't come across bad. We can challenge this, and all you got to do is apply scientific method. Nature abhors a vacuum. Well, science abhors scientific method if it's fake science, and that's really where we're going to win this argument. What is science? It's the study of the natural and physical world through observation and experiment. It's in the definition. That's what we should be challenging, and that's what we should be doing, and we can do it. You got to know most of the arguments, and you'll generally be able to get them to present the arguments that prove that, at least in their mind, that they're applying real science, not pseudoscience, and they're not. Everybody that's pushing anything to do with heliocentrism is pushing fake science, because there's no experiment that shows that there's a gravity, or that there's a rotating Earth, or that there's a bendy ocean. There is no experiment that demonstrates that. But if there's no experiment, that pushes it into pseudoscience. And you can't have pseudoscience if we're being taught that we live on a sphere because science proves it. Because it has to be science. It can't be pseudoscience. We can have this discussion with people. We should be out there asking questions. And that Global Eye Tour is just an absolute... It's just a gift horse that's not got the support that it should really be getting. We should be out there supporting it. But don't turn up to belittle the guy or to attack him personally on something you might not agree with him on. Have the conversation with the audience and people walking by and see where it goes. So what if you get your head kicked in verbally once or twice along the way whilst you're having this disagreement with them? It'll make you harder if anything. But I'm just shocked that the support really doesn't seem to be there this time, and it's just a gift horse. Come on, guys. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, Red Pill, I asked you to join, and I think it's all come from your mirror of the video of Tony.
I'm sorry, what?
So,
Sorry.
so I asked you to join because obviously Sleeping Warrior's channel's blowing up right now, which is cool. I think he was on 3,200 subscribers. He's up to 3,600 in 24 hours, and it would seem that Eddie Bravo seems to watch your channel. And for some reason he decided to stick it on his Instagram, and I've noticed you've gained a few subscribers from that too.
Yeah, Eddie Bravo is not the first time that he has sort of posted onto his Instagram, because I've mirrored, for example, Nathan Oakley, he's in the chat right now. I've mirrored some of the Flat Earth Debate show on my channel. And it's not the first time Eddie Bravo has actually shared my mirroring of the Flat Earth Debate crew, the Flat Earth Debate show. So yeah, it was really good. Really good to see that he stumbled upon the mirror of Riley's debate. And yeah, I'm getting a bunch of comments from people saying, hey, got here from Eddie Bravo, got here from Eddie Bravo. A lot of positive comments, actually. Even though the Instagram comments, a lot of stupid globe trolls, in Eddie Bravo's Instagram comment section, because I guess they're triggered. Eddie Bravo's using his big platform to talk about these topics. But yeah, I actually saw your debate with those two students live as it happened, because I am subscribed to the Jason of the Disbury Family YouTube channel, and I haven't woken up because obviously it's in the morning here. When you guys were out there, it was in the morning here in the United States Eastern Time. And it was freaking amazing. It was a classic, instant classic, Riley, instant classic. I just wonder if they're going to go home and actually reconsider their positions, or if they're going to double down on what they were taught.
Well, what I'd really like to see is I'd like everyone to share it basically so that they come across it on YouTube naturally, organically. Because I'd like to run back into them and basically ask them, come on, guys, and just touch base. I mean, I've done a bit of homework on the claim that he made about the atomic clocks, There's more to that. I started talking to different people about because I did say there was one thing in there that I didn't concede, or I just said, look, I'm not familiar with this one. Give me the opportunity to go and look into this, and I will do exactly that. And that from there has spawned off into different like tangents with like my circles. But I hope that they come back to me. I hope that they get to see it on YouTube organically, and they end up coming back, because I'd love to challenge these people now and say, guys, come on. This is blown up on YouTube. People are aware of it, and basically, you didn't really do too good there, did you? Really, let's be honest. You didn't know what the independent variable was. You got it the wrong way around, and that's like cat sat on the mat stuff. If you're a quantum mechanics, and then a chemistry major, if you're gonna get them things wrong that way around, and you're that high up in the education system, I mean, John, Quantum Eraser. He smashes this out the park every time he comes on and starts ranting about it. Okay, a lot of people may not listen because of whatever reason, like not paying attention or busy doing something in the background. But if you listen to John, he talks about the independent variable all the time, and these guys didn't know it. Literally, she said the presumed cause is the dependent variable, and it's like, how can you get that wrong? And it's like when you realise that a lot of people that believe and push that they're pushing science aren't actually pushing science. What are we left with? If they honestly believe that they are, but they're not, well, we're left with stories. Well, is that really good enough? I mean, if there is real evidence out there that we're turning, or that gravity is not a force but thinks of a force and all that kind of stuff, I want to see it. I don't want to sit in the dark ages. If there is somebody that can demonstrate it, like, and tell us of an experiment that's like the Cavendish experiment but not the Cavendish experiment, then we need to see this kind of stuff. Because I don't want to waste the next 5 years of my life chasing shadows. If we are chasing shadows, science should be able to demonstrate that the Earth turns. Where is that science? We're not asking unreasonable questions, but everybody seems to think that the Earth turns and science proves it. Well, where is it? It isn't there, is it? So I was lucky. I dropped on with these two. Jason came across to me. I was actually chatting in the background to a bloke about religion. Lovely guy, non-confrontational. I was listening, and we were just chatting about how he sees his religion, and how I asked him how did he know that his religion was not the effects of the placebo effect, and he was telling me about his experiences, and I was listening. It's not the tangent I wanted for the day, to be honest. And then Jason come and like grabbed me by the elbow, and he said, "Yeah, you need to come over here and have a chat to these." So, and as I was walking back, I said, "About what?" And he said, "Gravity." And I was like, "That's my like pet topic. That I like it." And I'd gone from a nice, gentle, like non-confrontational conversation about this guy's placebo effect or not placebo effect, straight into a deep and meaningful that Jason's just got into this discussion, and he just found the right people. And I had to try and pick up where he'd left off, and I didn't even know where he'd left off, but it started really deep in straight away. I was up to my knees already, and I didn't know what the conversation was. But I was lucky. I had a really good conversation with them guys. And I think that they looked at me and thought, they must have looked at us and thought, you know, we can get these flat earthers, we can just troll these flat earthers for an hour. Sure, we've got an hour, let's troll them for a bit and make them look stupid. And that didn't happen, did it? She didn't know what the independent variable was.
I think she was shocked. Yeah, because every media representation of flat earthers is that they're idiots, and I have a feeling they were a bit surprised when you could hold your ground. And I just wonder why the venom. You know, there was almost a venom in her demeanor towards you. There's almost like a talking down. And I guess it has something to do with, you know, the educational system, and, you know, you go to college, and I don't know if university is free in your country. Is it generally free?
No, it's expensive.
Oh, it's expensive. Okay, well, there you go. So, I mean, imagine paying tons of money for an education, and then it turns out it's all crap, and a bunch of a ragtag group of flat earthers on the side of the street are invalidating everything you've invested your entire university career into. I could imagine it triggers the crap out of them. Well, and I think sometimes I wonder if that's part of where the venom comes from, because for some people, they've invested so much into this, what would turn out to be a lie, and then it turns out that maybe flat earthers are right, and I'm sure that triggers them.
I think when I suggested to her that if she was going to say that, I think I said if maths was your independent variable, I'm going to call you a fake science, a pseudoscientist, something like that. Whatever it was, whatever the point was, I said to her, if your position is this, I'm going to call you a fake scientist or pseudoscientist. And then a response was, do you want me to show you my degree? And my response back was, it's not about your degree, it's whether or not you engage or comply with scientific method. The minute you say that to somebody that's in the realm of physics, that is the antichrist to them. That's their kryptonite. They don't want to be classed as pseudoscience. They want to be seen as the cutting edge of science. They want to be a scientist. For you to go in there and say you might be a pseudoscientist is like telling a footballer that he's actually a table tennis player, not a footballer. It's the antithesis of their position. And when I worded it in that way, I think that's where she got her venom from, because how dare you challenge me? I've been to university. I've got a degree. That's why I said to her, well, I've got a degree too. And she didn't. And then the other reason was, she asked me what was my degree in, and my response was, well, why don't you logically infer it and you calculate it with a bit of maths, and then you tell me what you think it is. But they took that as me being like hesitant and not wanting to. But the reality is, well, if maths is reality, why can't you calculate it? And why can't you? You don't even need to look at me. You can just do it. You can guess it, because you don't think that you don't think that you have to observe a phenomena to be able to prove that it exists, right? So you should be able to just guess it, and you should be able to calculate it. But they interpreted that hesitation as, oh, he hasn't got one. And it's like, do you know what? It's weird how they perceive what goes on based on the questions. And I did everything there based on calculated moves. I knew what moves to play and how to play it, because I wanted to steer the conversation towards their weaknesses. And it was obvious that the scientific method wasn't their strong point. And I was steering it into scientific method. And when she said to me that science doesn't prove things, I was like, you absolute idiot, of course it does. Science proves either your hypothesis or it fails to prove your hypothesis, and therefore you're null. It does do that. So whether science is good or bad, that is what science does. So when she said about Cavendish, and I actually think that she didn't know what the Cavendish experiment was, and rather than admit that she didn't know it, which would have been fine, I don't expect her to know it, but rather than admit that she didn't know it, I think she's come and spat that out at me instead, to move away from the fact that she thought that would have been seen as a weakness. If she didn't know what Cavendish was, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't really expect her to. But to spit that back at me then later on showed later on that that's where I was going to steer the conversation for me.
Yeah, it's funny because right at the beginning of your mirror, you can hear the conversation she was having with somebody else right before you came in. And she was like trying to shame the dude for like, oh, you can't fully explain how this works, yet you believe in it. It's like, but that's 99% of globe believers. 99% of globe believers have no idea the actual arguments or mechanics for the globe model, and they believe in it. So it's a very petty argument for her to try to make and try to shame people with, in my opinion.
Well, I went back over it to see what was the lead up to where I joined, because obviously I was in a conversation elsewhere, and she was talking about relative density. Jason was talking about the topic of relative density, right? But she wanted him to demonstrate that he knew what the calculation was. So I think the question she asked him was, how do you measure or how do you calculate density? So the answer is, mathematically speaking anyway, which is the language that I think that she was asking him to answer the question in, is mass over volume. I think that's the answer she was looking for off Jason. But I don't think Jason realized. He either did realize it was math and he didn't know it, or he didn't realize it was math and didn't understand how she didn't get what he was referring to, and he didn't really know how to explain it. So it depends on how he interpreted the question that was being asked. But she was pushing him on, how do you calculate or how do you work out density? Now, at the end of the day, you can work out how all these things apply and whatever, but science is really a cause and an effect relationship. The why of it or the calculations of it are not important, but these guys get so engrossed in the maths that maths becomes their god. That's what she even said it herself. Everything that we can observe in this universe reduces down to maths. Well, that puts maths as her god. Now that makes her a religious person, right? Now, if she believes and she worships maths, that's her prerogative. But if I come in there and say, hey, this is not necessarily the real world we live in, because this isn't science, this is just belief-based, it's math-based, it's a reification fallacy, start spitting off the words. It was just like a Nathan Oakley debate, but without the rumpus there to ruin it. That's really what that was. And everything that I'd learned in the debates was demonstrated in that one conversation, because I was pulling them apart each time they started talking about stuff. And really, like, if you have been watching the debates and you're up to speed with some of the things that we're talking about, I know it's dried off recently because the ballers abhor Nathan's chat. Ballers do not like going in Nathan's chat. And why? because we've got the experience now and the years behind us of working out how all this is. I mean, let's be honest, it kind of does look like a sphere, right? If you believe the nonsense, you have to come up with something alternative to explain how it's not actually a sphere. Because I've seen people that'll stand on the horizon or looking at the horizon, and it's flat as a pancake. But for some, in their head, somehow it's wired that a flat, level horizon somehow is curved. So they see a flat horizon, but something computes in their mind, and it translates into a curve for them. But they're literally looking at it's flat. There's no curve to it. And I'm like, how is it possible that when you see what you call curvature, and we point out that it's an optical effect called some element of refraction that might be explained by numerous different versions of. I mean, look at Tim Osman. He's got a list of about 70 reasons for why there is an obstruction at the horizon, and he thinks that we're just plucking excuses out. But the reality is they're all valid reasons for why there's obstruction. These reasons for why there's obstruction, you can literally present them to ballers, and all they can see is curvature. And we look at it and go, it's not curved though, is it? It is obstruction, but it's not the curvature of Earth doing it. It's clearly something optical. But in their heads, they see any obstruction as curve. And that you can see that that's how they're programmed and wired. And it's like, how can you do this? Is the programming that deeply ingrained? Or are you just literally dishonest because you are dishonest? And it's difficult to judge, but it's crazy.
But you got to admit, though, Riley, and this is something I've been thinking about for the last 2 months, is like, I don't believe we live on a sphere anymore, because all evidence and reason suggests that we don't live on a sphere. But the globe model, for the deception that it is, it's not 100% airtight, because when you really zoom into the details, it starts to fall apart at the seams. But on the surface, I mean, the globe model is I call it a genius deception. Like it's pretty incredible when you think about the globe model, because in many ways it works on the very surface if you don't look into it too deeply. Like, oh, things are disappearing bottom up. Okay, that makes perfect sense on a sphere.
Yeah. What they've done is they've took out our observations and made it into a sphere. And you're right, it does come across like a... I mean, I've said it to Nathan numerous times. I've been out and I've done my own observations, and I'm sure Ranty will agree. There's times when I've been out and it's looked curved. There's also times when I've gone out and it's looked completely flat. There's also times I've been out and it's looked somewhere in the middle, and you just can't work out what the baseline is. You can't work out if it's flat looking curved. Is it curved looking flat? Is it somewhere in the middle? You just can't work it out. Some days it'll support globe, some days it'll support flat. Now, usually it supports flat, but there has been the odd occasion where it did support globe. So I can't really rule globe out absolutely 100% because I can't work out what the baseline is, what the default position is before refraction and atmospheric effects and all that miraging stuff. But the point is, you're right. It does look as though it's a sphere when you start applying the model to it at times. But once you scratch below the surface, all of a sudden it falls apart, and it falls apart really, really quickly, particularly in the context of gravity. But in terms of optical observations at the horizon, yeah, you can look at the horizon and it kind of does support the ball at times, but equally it can support flat, and then you genuinely do not know what the position is, which is the position I'm at with the optical horizon shots. I don't know what the default position is, but I do realise gravity is not a force. So even if we'll give you all the curvature on the horizon shots, let's just give them for the sake of argument. What's the mechanism that stops the atmosphere from bursting into space? Because there needs to be something there.
The mechanism is your imagination. Just think of it as a force, and it is a force, dude.
Yeah, it's like my Ferrari and my Gant, right? You've got a Taurus, right, or whatever car you've got. Civic, you've got a Civic, right? Your Civic, right? Your Civic's not really a Civic. It's actually a Ferrari, and you can think of it as a Ferrari. Doesn't change the fact that it's still a Civic, right? Well, gravity's not a force. Even all day you can think about it as a force, but if it's not a force, it's not a force. So let's be clear, just because you can think of it as a force still does not make it a force. It can't cause anything. It's an effect. It's an effect of the curvature of space-time, a mathematical concept that doesn't exist real world. It only exists in maths, and that is not the reason why mobile phones fall to the deck. But if you believe we live on a ball, that's what you've got to tell people. Mathematics is your god. That literally is what it is.
Yep, sounds about right. And she kept appealing to math, and so did the other dude. It's just ridiculous. Like I don't know. I don't know what it is about the educational system that convinces so many people to think math is some type of objectively existing God, for lack of a better word. Like my older brother, for example, has always loved math, but in his later years, as he began to study it more and more, he started to realize that math isn't really 100% foolproof. You know, he used to think it was like this objectively existing almighty description, but not just a description, as almost as if it became more than a description for him. It became reality itself. You know, math is not reality. And then eventually he kind of got his hopes dashed because he realized that math isn't this perfect thing, and there are limitations to it. And the most important one, at least in this context, would be that it's just a language. It just describes the world, but it is not the world. The map is not the territory. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, reification is alive and well. Maths is their god. That is the... I mean, I had to say to him numerous times, look, maths is a calculation of an effect, right? That's what you predict is going to happen. If you predict that 2 + 2 = 4 by the maths, and it happens to work out in real world, then you validate your maths by doing it real world. But it's only when you do it real world that you validate your maths. You don't validate your maths just by doing the maths. You have to demonstrate that your maths is real world. And that's the problem. They think that maths is their god, and they can stop at maths because they think that maths is reality, because usually when you have certain other things that are known, they know that the maths will work out. It's not contentious. Like if you're dividing one by the other and it's not a contentious issue, right, and they know that the maths works in that context, then they're going to accept maths. But what about when it doesn't work in the real world and they can't test it? They're doing it based blindly on trust. Well, that means you prove scientific. You believe mathematics, and that is where their problem lies. And they just couldn't see. They couldn't. I even said to him at one point, I said, "Stop going on about the maths, for God's sake." And he said, "But it's true. True. The description, numbers or equations or formulas, but nonetheless, it's descriptive. It doesn't cause anything, and that's what we're looking for. What's the cause of the atmosphere not bursting off into the void of space?" And I didn't even have a conversation with them. But that's how deeply ingrained maths has become in society. It has become a god.
Yep.
Did you get your apples quotation out? If I
in this, no, I don't think I did. I think 2 + 2 = 3 = 4, and 3 + 1 also equal 4. That all them three maths works, but there's only one objective reality in them three. I also gave the example where I said I was saying that all he's doing is correlating his maths with real world. He's not proving them. And I said that 99.7% of all motor vehicle accidents are caused by earthers. And that must imply that all the ball earthers are going around, razzing around like lunatics, causing. Clearly, it's a effect, right? Probably accurate. It probably is 99.7% of all accidents. But my point was clearly you correlate the consequence that maths is caused. Well, if that's the case, then all the ballers are running around lunatics everywhere causing crashes. Of course, that might not be the real world example, even though it probably is the real world example. Demonstrating the correlation doesn't mean that the cause is clearly.
Yeah, you keep cutting out there, Tony.
Oh, sorry, I've got it a bit high. That should be better. I don't think I'll cut out now.
Yeah, sounds better.
You do debates as well, don't you, Red Pill?
Yeah, sometimes. I've done a few. Join usually mostly other people's debates, and yeah, it's fun time. Globers have nothing.
Is it more entertaining for you now, though, than anything else?
You mean debating?
Yeah, knowing that they haven't got anything to come back with.
Oh, it's just for me, it's just validation, because I would say that I've been very hesitant with, quote, coming to the conclusion that we don't live on a sphere. I've been extremely hesitant with it. I've done tons of due diligence. I've subscribed to a gazillion Globe Defender channels. I really wanted to hear both sides of this debate. So yeah, I mean, debating a panel of Globers and realizing they all have nothing, and it's all just deflection and playing stupid, that really helped just confirm a little further for me that there is nothing to back this globe up but obfuscation and tricks, and that's all it is.
And bully boy tactics. I mean, I remember watching your hangout, and I remember cursing at you, unintentionally, not intentionally, but basically what happened is the ballers all jumped on it, and they've just basically bullied their way into the conversation to the point where they just by consensus claimed a victory, to which we all know that they're not entitled to claim, but they claimed it by consensus anyway. And it's basically, it ends up being like 6v1, and they claim that gravity is a force at the end of it because all five or six of them agree that gravity is a force, even though Einstein says it's not. And then you're left on your own saying it's not a force. I mean, that was just an example, but they use bully boy tactics to force you to agree with them, and that's not the way it works. Prove it. Prove that there's gravity a force, and we know that Einstein says it's not. Well, you can't make it a force if Einstein says it's not, because he is your authority.
Would you mind me adding Toady to the call?
I don't care.
Okay.
It's just going to end up being a discussion about gravity if you do.
Well, I'm sure we got the
It's
right.
up to you.
Sure.
I don't mind, but if you want the direction to go gravity way, that's what's going to happen.
Well, it doesn't have to go that way.
It will, because the last thing I said to him before I joined the call was, you can't reject Einstein. You have to accept Einstein if you believe we live in a sphere. Join Adam if you want to. Just be aware this is going to go into a debate straight away.
Well, we'll add him. I don't think it'll go straight into a debate. I hope not.
No, we can talk about.
Yes, Toady?
Is he here?
No, I've got some. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
I don't know. Have I got the watch page up? Can you hear me?
We hear you loud and
Yeah,
clear.
we hear you.
Yeah,
us.
I've probably just got the triple feedback from the watch page. No, we can happily talk about the Global Eye Tour because I got some interesting things to say about that before we jump into gravity, which you did just challenge me about, of course.
Well, excellent.
Of course.
Let's talk about
I mean,
the global
look, I'm sure. I'm sure Twitwit will be happy because she's just said that today is boring. So I'm not sure what she. I don't know if she means her day. or
Well,
if
I'll
she means
spice
the
it
show.
up a little bit.
Okay, so what have you got to say about the Global Eye Tour?
A few things. So I thought your performance was, as you know, not bad. I think you're probably a little bit unfair on the woman. I think the bloke was not so good. I think he made a weak point about arguing maths as cause. I think maths as a cause is, we know that's not the case. And by the way, I watched it live as well while it was happening. I didn't watch it on replay. I watched it, as it transpired. Sorry, so I've got quite a few things to say about the Global Eye, but we can pack your bit in first if you want, and then I can expand it a bit, because I've got a few things about Jason and how the whole week...
Tell me about the woman, because the woman was the one that's got the higher level of science-related education, and she was the one that was unable to demonstrate that she knew what the independent variable was.
Yeah, so I think my point on that to you would be, so my assessment, I know you'll say that you won and you ripped her and you whatever, I think for someone who's just wandering around going about their normal lawful business and then suddenly they come across a flat earther, who's intelligent, who can't just be run rings around. Obviously, Jason struggles. We'll probably touch on Jason in a sec. You are a street fighter. You have got a million debates behind you, lots of debates behind you. So I think...
Is that Rumpus telling you not to engage?
No, that's my wife telling me not to raise my voice. I'm not controlled by Rumpus. I'll try and keep my voice down a bit. So if I speak low, it's just because I'm being told to shut up and not to wake the kids up. So I think she gave very good. She defended the position very well for someone who wasn't expecting to do it that day. Of course, she got those things muddled up, as people do. People make mistakes when they're chatting and it's going backwards and forwards. But I thought it was a very interesting debate, which is obviously why it's gone viral, why it's gone a long way. And shout out to Eddie Bravo. I very much like Eddie. I think he's always very engaging, very interesting. And you deserve that. So I think, kudos to you, and indeed kudos to her. And I hope she does touch back in. I hope she joins some of our debates, because I think we could do with people like her.
I hope she doesn't join the debates. She'd end up getting accused of being a transsexual by Pete Shane, that she's actually a bloke, and obviously that's going to put people off. So I hope she doesn't join the debates, but I hope she does catch up with me at some point, because I want to I want to know what her position is now. I want to be able to say to her that thousands of people have watched it and they've seen that this, and here are some of the comments and reads like they do on the news shows where they say Joe from Essex says da 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 da, and just see what her current position is, because there were some I mean, yeah, you say that she mixed up her words, but it wasn't as if it was a mixed up, like a misspeak, in the sense that she wasn't aware that question was coming, because I'd preempted her by saying, I don't think you know what the independent variable is. That gives her time to know that she's going to be asked what's the independent variable. So obviously when I asked it, she's got time to think about her answer. And if she really does know the words, given that she's got time, she knows what's coming next, she's not going to get it wrong. And she did get it wrong. And I'm like,
So I think, when you're just wandering around, you're not expecting to be in that position. I've been on a lot of debates now, and so you have various positions and various tactics that can buy you time. She wasn't expecting to do that. I do admit she stumbled over it. She got it wrong, because she probably hasn't thought about it for a while, to be fair. But she was engaging on an intellectual level with you. She was giving you certainly some respect. I know Red Pill thinks she was talking down to you. I think she thought she could do that, but then obviously realised she was maybe a little bit out of her depth. I didn't think she was a transsexual as well. Quite attractive young woman. And certainly very intelligent, was probably more, as you say, educated in science than the chap who was there, who struggled, I think, a bit more.
Yeah, he didn't know how gyroscopes worked.
He didn't, did he? And then he went on about the clocks, which was quite interesting as well. But I think it was very engaging. It was very interesting. And it engaged the audience, which I think was very, very good.
And of course, that's the consequence of flat earthers getting out there and engaging the audience. I think that there are gems out there that we can have good conversations with. You will find a match if you go out there. You might not get the. I mean, I had a guy, and I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I don't disagree with him for talking to me about religion. He was a lovely guy, but it was a tangent that I'm not interested in taking on that day or that occasion. There wasn't anybody else at that moment, so I ended up having the guy talk to me about his walk with God. Now, it's his walk with God, and I'm pleased and happy that he's comfortable talking about it. But it wasn't why I was there. And when Jason said, come and have a look at this, come and help me here, I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? Gravity. Great. That for me was just going from
red rag to
a peaceful, going from a peaceful, non-contentious, letting the guy chat conversation to you're now knee deep in dung, and I'm trying to pick up where he's left off because I don't even know what they're talking about, and we're right in on it. And I was like, excellent, this is what I want. And it ended up being it's an instant classic, because I was just lucky. But yeah, I mean, that girl, I think she was getting pissed off with me because she realised that I was batting all the stuff.
I agree. You were very lucky you got that quality of opposition, I think, because other normal people just walking around would then sort of talk maybe for 5 minutes, struggle a bit. Do you see what I mean? Against someone like you, certainly, and then take off. So I think you were very, very lucky that you got her. And that's why it's an instant classic, because people recognise that. People recognise the reality, unless that was set up. I assume it wasn't set up, right? I'm not that much of a conspirator that I would think that someone had set that up. It looked real to me, yeah, and it looked authentic.
Well, I've had everybody asking me, do you think it was a setup? And I'm like, well, I don't know how it could be, because Jason doesn't know anybody in the area. Jason's from Bristol or Somerset or wherever it is. He's like 150, 200 miles away from his home address. If it was a setup, it was done not by Jason, but done by somebody on the ball earth side, perhaps. But it definitely wasn't a setup within our community, because, I mean, I don't know how it would possibly. I mean, I don't know anybody that happened. I don't
see why you do it, because you'd set them up for you to win. I mean, I know you say you won. I don't think, personally, I think she did a very good job. I'm sure a lot of other ballers probably think that she did a very commendable job there. So,
and that was the reason why I gave her a hug at the end, because it was like I'd shook his hand, and he was cool. He was a decent dude, and I didn't know what to do with her because I'd spent like 90 minutes like attacking her on all fronts.
Yeah, it was very long, wasn't it? It was a very, very long. Yeah, it was well over an hour, wasn't it? It was. I think it was nearer to 2.
It was nearer to 2 because the total video length was 2 hours, and it wasn't all there. But I mean, yeah, kudos to the girl, because not only did she stand her ground and she stood up for what she was taught, what she was studying, she stood up for her own views and beliefs as well. And that is an epic conversation. The girl done good, even though I don't agree with her. You can't take it away from her that she actually stood her ground, and she neither of us swore. She only swore once. She said, "You've never done a fucking experiment in your life." That was the only time she slipped. Everything else.
That's what I mean. It wasn't ad homs. It was a very respectful debate. It's what I really like to see, which is why I commended you on it. I spoke the other day on, I know, Jose's or whatever, that I thought was very good. It's a shame we didn't get more of that, because of course, and I'll talk a bit more about, we'll expand out from that, and then we can come back to this if we want. So we had obviously the police bit with Roxanne at the start of the week. The policeman, by the way, I think was very level-headed. He handled that very well. I can't remember if it was Newcastle or Nottingham or began with an N, wherever that happened. And then, of course, you had Dell today, which was a bit sad. And I'm sad because I want good opposition. Yeah, I think that's good for debate, and it's good for debates. Yeah. And I think to see, it was very sad that Jason doesn't have more support. I think Jason isn't the best debater, but he's a real proselytizer. You know, he goes out there and he promotes flat Earth. But I think he's, you know, the arguments he's limit himself, right? He's not the best, arguer.
And he does admit that. He does admit that. He says that he's not the best guy for the job, and he's right. I think he knows his limits.
For a guy to take 2 weeks off to travel around, I mean, whether I disagree with him, which obviously I do, but he obviously believes in what he's doing, right? He's a very genuine guy, so I'll absolutely give kudos to him for that. I think it was very sad to see these elements within Flat Earth, because of suspicion and because of actors' theories and all this kind of stuff. For Dell, it was his city not to go and help Jason a bit, but instead, obviously, to be a little bit intimidating, because it seemed intimidating to me watching it.
It was funny when he said something like, "So you think that I'm intimidated?" whilst puffing out his chest and basically squaring up to him, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I mean, I don't understand. There's a time and the place to attack Jason's person on something that he said or done or whatever, and it's clearly not them. And if Dell doesn't agree with something that Jason's doing for whatever reason, then that's something that you deal with Jason. But you don't do it while he's in the middle, because he's basically become the rumpus on our side. He's our version of the rumpus.
I mean, I don't really watch Dell because I had a few interactions with him, and he gets upset very easily, and he's quite shouty, isn't he? So that, I don't really engage with him for that reason, right? Obviously, I'm not like that. But I would agree with you. You either stay away or you talk to Jason offline or after or something, not while he's in the middle of doing his piece. I think it was a little bit unfair to do that.
Yeah, he shamed himself there. I think, like I say, if you got beef with him for some reason because he said something about whatever. I also found it funny that Dell was acting like the victim, and I'm like, come on, Dell, you can't play the victim card after you've just been slating the guy for 15 minutes based on what you think is things that he's done wrong because he's a character or whatever. Don't play the victim card. If you don't want to be there, Dell, or whatever, or you don't agree with what he's doing, just don't turn up. Do you know what I mean? You may as well be a baller.
Yeah, it was a shame more people didn't come down. I mean, I know Spurs was there the day you were there. I saw Jeswick and there were some others around. It's a shame there wasn't a few more people turned out, I suppose, really. I thought there would be. I was surprised, by the way. I was very surprised that there weren't more people.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it just Jason and that lady who you see giving out the things? Are they the two who are mainly going around? Is there more people?
Yeah, I think them two are the main two that are doing the whole tour. I think, or most of the tour at least. But I think the reason why it's not as popular is basically down to YouTube's changed the algorithms recently. Last year, we were able to support each other and we were getting each other popping up on feeds. So Jason's Globelite tour would have been popping up on feeds. But now it's not doing that at all, and you're getting people like Red's Rhetoric claiming debunks instead. So instead of getting Jason's Globelite tour that is live, you're now getting, for example, AB Science. AB Science is a new guy that's come on the scene, and he's done a scientific method video today or yesterday. And he's picked on, for example, gravitational lensing, I think he said. And basically, he's applying scientific method to gravitational lensing. And basically, there is no observed phenomena. So you haven't got a dependent variable. So you can't ascribe a cause to it. And you definitely can't manipulate your presumed cause to demonstrate a cause and effect relationship. It fails at the first hurdle. But he's claiming that the gravitational waves are a legitimate phenomena. No, they're not. Niels Bohr, who is a Nobel Prize winning physicist from back in the day, early 1900s, I think he is, maybe like late 1800s, whatever period. He says that your observed phenomena must exist. It must be something that you observe. You have to see it. If you can't see it, then that's not a phenomena. And he just ignores that, and he thinks that he's okay with ignoring it. And I'm saying, no, you're the problem, dude. An observed phenomena must be observed. You have to see something. You've got to see something happening. If you don't see anything happening, there's no phenomena. and that he just rejects it, and he's done a whole video dedicated to it. This is the kind of misinformation that is making ballers think that science can be anything, and science isn't anything. It's narrow on purpose. It's broad in its application, but it's narrow with regards to what it does, because it proves a cause and effect relationship, and you've got to prove that yourself if you're claiming science. And this is why anybody with the name science in the name, from my perspective, is dodgy, because you can just see straight away they're not going to be presenting science. Look at Bob, the science guy. He's got more fallacies than I've got fingers. Every video he does is full of fallacies. And the ballers are just like, oh, it's all right, he's a good guy. Yeah, he might be a good guy, but he's misleading people into thinking everything's science when nothing that he presents is science. Nothing. So it's like, where do you draw the line, guys? Are the ballers going to be able to just turn a blind eye to false rhetoric? Or are they going to start saying, look, scientific method is a thing, this isn't science? Or are they just going to pretend that they've not seen it? I mean, have you seen AB Science's latest video?
I'll give you my comment from the things that you said earlier as well, sort of linking them in. Yeah, I think, and you won't like it because you didn't like some of the stuff I said the other day. I think that you find it difficult to deal with ambiguity. So I think you like things to be very black and white. And I think even in science, we do have some areas of ambiguity. And so I think it's easy to say that you dismiss something, right? And I don't want to go down the what Einstein said debate. And I'll explain my position, by the way, on Einstein if you like. But I think it's very easy to want things to be black and white and say this is this and this is this and this doesn't prove this. So I think you had a great straw man where you described what my view was. And I can not pick and choose, but I can be very clear that I understand Newtonian gravity. It's a force. I can see it. It does pull my mobile phone down. It holds the atmosphere on the Earth and various other things that I believe that it does. I'm big enough to admit I don't understand, Einstein's field equations. I can't follow them. And I will need, quite a job to explain to me how they really work. And so therefore I can't talk with confidence about them. That doesn't mean that I'm rejecting one thing and putting something else in its place. And you will say to me, oh, well, how could you do that? It's your science. It's your science. It's not. My science is what I understand it to be, in the same way that you choose what your understanding is.
Yeah, but if you are rejecting one in favour of the other. You can't reject Einstein.
I'm not rejecting Einstein. What I'm explaining to you is that I don't fully understand Einstein, so I'm not rejecting it, but I hear that they've got good explanations for the benditure of space-time, right? I don't really understand what that is. I don't understand the equations, whereas absolutely I do understand Newton and the equations, from the Principia and so forth. So the things that I can observe, the things I can measure and where I can use it, I'm very, very happy with that. Whereas I leave it to others to understand, and there'll probably be someone after Einstein, and there's probably other people now studying that who will elucidate it further. And that's fantastic, and that's what science should be.
So let me read to you back that paragraph I read before, and you tell me how you interpret this, because I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested to know how you can, because you're going to have to either say that you don't understand this, or plead the ignorant card like you just have. But when you're given evidence that doesn't support your position, you can't then play the ignorant card. So
we'll see where we get to, Anthony, because I think you say, well, because what you want me to do is you want to straw man me to say, well, I throw it out, right? I don't, it's incompatible. Newton's incompatible with Einstein. So therefore you explain how gravity works to me and all the equations that I can use and the models I can use, and you can't. So therefore I will carry on using them until you put something better in their place and convince me of it. But anyway, read your bit out.
Well, this is the citation I was working against these two morons in Liverpool.
They weren't
and
morons,
I'll read
were
it.
They? Being fair, they weren't morons. Yeah, let's give they weren't morons, were they? I mean, otherwise you're a moron.
They were polite morons.
If they were morons, if they were genuinely morons, like I'm a moron, then you're doing yourself a disservice by even talking to us, aren't you?
But when
don't you think? If they really are morons. I know I'm picking.
I'll agree that they were polite morons, but they were morons.
Okay, I mean, I think your definition of moron and mine are probably two different things. But I'm glad you haven't used the word retard.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah, because if you know anyone who's genuinely retarded, it's not a very nice thing, really, to say, is it? Yeah. But if you met people,
we do need an adjective to describe these people that isn't going to be polite and friendly. There has to be a description.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll come back to that.
I'll accept
so So the morphing of space and time is not just the stuff of exotic physics. It governs the motion of any falling object. I mean, this is like in one paragraph. This encapsulates what gravity is, according to George Musa writing for Scientific American. So if you say you don't understand Einstein's field equations, I can accept that. But what I'm going to say is, how do you get past this? This governs the motion of any falling object. Baseballs, wine glasses, expensive smartphones, Newton's apple. Things that slip out of your hand accelerate towards the floor because Earth's mass warps time. I mean,
yeah.
How do you understand
I'm
this?
fine. I'm really happy with that. That is an explanation. Okay. I don't understand this thing called space-time. I've not seen it or touched it. But that sounds to me like a pretty plausible explanation. Don't know if it's true or not. I don't understand it. But it sounds plausible enough. I mean, that could well be the explanation for the forces that we see. But I mean,
what gets even better?
What would you like me to say about it? Okay, keep going.
What gets even better is this bit in brackets. It says, the warping of space plays only a minor role in these cases. So forget about space because it's only a minor role. What is the time Earth's mass is manipulating in this context? Now, I
find that
accept
surprising.
that
Are you sure this is accurate, this article, Anthony? Because that seems very odd to me, because that implies that time is more warped than space.
Well, it is, because Einstein says that the direction of down is defined by the direction in which time passes more slowly. It's not to the center of the Earth. It's not to the center of the mass. So down is the direction in which time travels more slowly. And when you say, is this article accurate? You know, it's 2015 by George Musa. You remember George E.
I do.
Musa?
I remember George Musa, yeah.
Yeah, so he's citing that. I mean, this only came up because she challenged me on time dilation, right? But this is one of the articles that sticks in my mind, and I can remember it because it's written in a way. Credit to George Musa on the one hand.
He's done so much for you, Anthony. He's launched your career.
Yeah, he's the gift that keeps giving and fight the flat
he
earth.
keeps making these ridiculous statements, right?
But the thing is, what we can do is
let's just clarify that. You say he keeps making these ridiculous statements. Why would you say that? Is that because it goes against your religion?
No, it's tongue in cheek, right? I mean, he uses hyperbole, like words like "snap the wand in two." It's more about the warping of time than space. You know, we know that if you put a clock on the top of the Eiffel Tower, it goes a little bit slower. Cesium clock, right? It goes a little bit slower than it does at sea level. And if you put it in a plane and you fly it around, it goes a little bit slower. We know that. That's a fact.
No. You say that. That would be the observed phenomena, right? We know that if a clock goes on the top of the Eiffel Tower, it slows down. How is that demonstrating an observed phenomena that's not necessarily the claim that is time dilation? What I mean is, I've got a clock on my wrist, Ranty's got a clock on his wrist, and you've got a clock on your wrist. And by the end of the day, mine will be a second different to Ranty's, yours will be a second the other way, and they're all close enough, they're all accurate enough to tell you a rough time. But over a week or two, you might have to move your finger hand a little bit because it's lost a bit of time, or it's gained a bit of time, and you have to make continuous adjustments over a long period of time. Of course, your battery might be going flat as well. It's another thing that slows things down. But my point is, your claim is that we know that on the top of Eiffel Tower, time slows down.
So shall I go? So I explain that a little bit, right? Again, you don't like these explanations, but I will explain it. So these are cesium clocks, right? Which are really, really accurate. I mean, by the way, most of our clocks now are pretty much synced to atomic clocks anyway, because the atomic time signals that go through the mobile phone network. So most of us, I haven't got a wristwatch. I've worn one for years, right? I use my mobile phone. So they're reasonably accurate. But these are cesium clocks, which are very, very accurate. And they made two of them, especially for doing this experiment when they looked at time dilation. As you know, you read up about it, haven't you? They carried it around on a conventional aircraft. It was one of the cheapest Nobel Prizes ever to be won. Time dilation.
So when you say that they're accurate, do you know how accurate these clocks are?
Yeah, incredibly accurate, because they're cesium clocks and they're based on the decay of cesium. Yeah.
So have you seen my latest video where I put that?
I haven't. No, sorry.
Okay, it's the re-upload of that version that you've seen live, but it's got the bit in the middle where I said I'd like to be able to read this article and come back to you with it, and in the middle I've gone back with the citation. Do you know how you spell these cesium clocks? Is it CES?
Cesium is in the element CAES. IUM, but I've actually got the paper of the original people who won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah. So I think
there's an American way that you spell cesium there, but yeah.
Okay, so what I did was I type in. How do you spell cesium when it's not American?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
there's two
anyway,
ways of spelling it. I thought it was
what-
CAE, but maybe there's an English way of spelling it.
I mean,
But
this
that's
isn't
it.
a
That's the
citation.
element. Cesium 133. But as I say, I have read the original thing of how they won that Nobel Prize, and as I say, it was very cheap, and they used actual conventional airlines to fly around on it. Have you read that particular experiment about that time dilation?
I have, yeah, and I was citing in the video. Yeah, I'll show you.
You got a problem with it?
Go on.
No. Have you got a problem with it? I'm wondering because you're building up something. Okay.
Yeah. So the claim is that you've got a reliable, dependable, repeatable mechanism to keep time. And then they fly it east. One goes east around the world, the other one goes west around the world, and they go around the world twice. Now the claim that they're making is that one loses time, the other one gains time by doing that mechanism, right? What that basically means, do you remember the scene out of Superman where Lois Lane dies in the earthquake? The car falls into the ravine
backwards. Yep.
and he spins the opposite way around the world to reverse time, rewind time. That is basically what is being described by these cesium clocks.
Wow. They're not winding it backwards. It's just time is slower in one direction than the other.
But the point is that that's what they would need to do to prove that time is dilating, because they would have to, if time is the cause of the clocks failing to keep time, then you've got to manipulate time. We've had this before with time being the independent variable. Nobody can manipulate time to prove that time is the cause. So if the clocks are losing or gaining time, how are you going to prove that it is the time that's doing it and it's not someone, it's not, I mean, let's be honest, is it falsifiable? Yes. Can it be falsified? Yeah. Could they falsify it? Yeah. Would they falsify it to support Einstein? I wouldn't put it past them. Ranty, loud. So how do we prove that the cause...
Me. That was Toady.
Was that you that Toady typing?
I'm just trying to look up the time dilation thing it was. I'm going to go on mute, don't worry. I'm still listening.
So how do we prove that time was the cause for the reason why these clocks gained or lost time? Well, you have to manipulate time to prove cause and effect. Because if your claim is time is your presumed cause, that's your independent variable. We know by scientific method that you have to manipulate your independent variable, your presumed cause.
So you say, I mean, I disagree with that because, as you know, I don't conform to yours and QE's definition of this. You don't need to wiggle it, as you say. I believe that you can do a field experiment, an observational study, and other methods, of doing the scientific method. I think you do need a hypothesis, but we can debate that. So we've had this discussion before. So, and I thought time can be an independent variable, and I've got citation to show you if you want. I can happily share citation around it.
Let me go through why it's wrong, and then you can tell me whether you disagree with the university citations that I present, and then you can tell me for why.
And I can show you my citations. Okay, hang on. Let me just get your screen.
Hang on, I've got mine on screen.
Look you up, man. We'll do one thing at a time. That's all right. Just let me see yours. Okay.
I've got mine on screen. So Penn State University states the independent variable is what is varied during the experiments. It's what the investigator thinks will affect the dependent variable. So it's got to be varied. That's just one citation. And this is why I don't like people that accuse me of cherry picking, because I've got 10 and I'll go through, say 5, but they all say the same thing. Independent variable is the variable that is changed or controlled in a scientific experiment to test the effects on the dependent variable. So if time is the thing that's going to be causing the dependent variable, the effect, if time's causing it, it has to be manipulated. So if the claim is that they're observing variations on the atomic clocks, that's the dependent variable. What's causing it? Well, they're saying time. Well, if time's causing it, you've got to manipulate time to prove that time did cause it. Otherwise, you're falling outside it. You're correlating, which was the point that I was making against this guy when he was saying maths was your independent variable. Well, maths is a construct in the same way that time is. You can't manipulate time, no matter how, even if you're Superman. I'm going to call Superman bullshit, right? He didn't spin round backwards to spin the earth backwards, right? You can't manipulate time to prove cause and effect. In this experiment, to prove that time was the cause, you're inferring it. It's an affirming the consequent form, a logical fallacy. You see time variation, you think it's been caused by that. You haven't manipulated it. You do have to manipulate it. So University of North Carolina, an independent variable is the presumed cause, whereas the dependent variable is the presumed effect. Well, we've got the presumed effect, which is time dilation. So we've now got the independent variable, time, to be the presumed cause. But you have to manipulate it it says, in an experiment, the independent variable is the variable that is varied or manipulated by the researcher. You have to do it. So you say you don't have to do it. You can observe it with observational sciences. I'll say they don't comply with scientific method. By virtue of that fact, it makes them correlative and therefore pseudoscience. It doesn't comply with science. You have to do the manipulation yourself. And that is the definition. That's why I got that girl cornered. So it says, yeah, explorable.com, independent variable is what you change in order to provide a result. This is GCSE level teaching. Independent variable.
A very simplified way for children to understand it. Yeah, like my son who's just starting in his journey into physics. Yeah.
Sure, but if you're not going to accept the University of North Carolina...
So let's do the same thing. So do me the courtesy of what I've got, because I prepared it. So this is the opportunity of me sharing it back to you. Have you gone through your citations, or is there some more?
Well, I just wanted to make two more because I want to do completeness, because I don't want to be accused for cherry picking these.
No.
Institute of Physics, the English Institute of Physics, right? The independent variable, the variable that is deliberately changed by the experimenter. I'll just do one more. University of Southern California, the independent variable that refers to the condition of an experiment that is systematically manipulated by the investigator. So if you're going to claim time causes time dilation, whatever the claim is to do with time dilation, you have to manipulate it. It's systematically manipulated by the investigator. So like when AB Science claims that the gravitational waves are an observed phenomena or a phenomena for the purposes of science, you have to manipulate the cause to prove the effect that you believe that you're looking at. Because if you don't manipulate it to prove cause and effect, you're not doing science. You believe you are, you tell people you are, but you're not complying with the method. So if you want to present a couple of things so that we can see it and we can learn.
And there's a good reason for that, Anthony. The reason I want to present it is because I think I took the first 10, and you're not going to like this because obviously you picked some, which is fine. By the way, can you see the screen?
No.
Just tell me once you can see the screen.
Oh, I can now. Now.
Perfect. So I took the first 10 from Google because I actually have this little bit of text here about I'm annoyed by Anthony, but we'll skip over that because it'll just won't help. So this is the first one. Here we have what's an independent variable, and I went and took the first 10 from Google, which we're going to have a look at. Like you, I highlighted some pieces, yellow as well. Interestingly, independent variable is exactly what it sounds like. It's a variable that stands alone, isn't changed by the variables. For example, someone's age might be an independent variable. So there we have time. In terms of someone's age, when you pick and make your measurements, being an independent variable. That was, by the way, the first citation.
Well, hang on, stop. Go back up.
Okay.
So that last line you've got highlighted, it says, if the independent variable causes some kind of change in other variables. Hang on, where's the beginning of that sentence? In fact, when you're looking for some kind of relationship between the variables, you are trying to see if the independent variable causes some kind of change in the other variables. I agree with that. So when it says here, someone's age might be an independent variable, you can also read that as might not be an independent variable. But I would ask you to explain to me so that I can understand.
But it's saying it could be. I mean, it might not be as well. It doesn't have to be, but it could be.
All right, but what I want you to explain to me in this context of your citation, how someone's age might cause some kind of change in the other variables.
Well, I think there's a brilliant example here. It tells us, doesn't it? Other factors such as what they eat, how they go to school, how television, what they watch, aren't going to change a person's age. In fact, what you're looking for is some kind of relationship between those variables that you're trying to see if the independent variable causes some kind of change in the other variables or the dependent variable. So I think they're being very clear about, so for example, if I wanted to look at height, right, and I want to relate height to age, I could sample the height of my children over, I don't know, annually.
That'd be correlation, though, wouldn't it? So let's formulate this into a scientific experiment, right? Let's say that there's an observed phenomenon. Hang on, don't go off it yet. Leave it on screen. Let's say that there's an observed phenomenon.
I do have to go to work tomorrow at some point, but okay.
So we have an observed phenomena, and we believe that age is the cause of this thing. So let's just say it's degenerative brain disorder, dementia. So let's say that we think that age causes dementia. Yeah, it's reasonable, plausible.
No, because the age is the sample when you're using it as your independent variable. Yeah, I think what you're looking for is you're going to strawman this, because what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, we're going to get measure of these ages of young people up to older people. We're going to find there's any brain disease and tendency of older people. Therefore, we're going to say that that's a correlation, right, not causation. And I think that you are using the independent variable here because you're choosing when you're making that measurement. Yeah. Right. And you can use someone's age.
Let's not presume what I'm about to say. Let me say it and then respond to what I say. If we're going to assume, or if we're going to predict that age causes something, then in the citations that I've just given you, it says it's systematically manipulated by the observer to prove that cause. So how are we going to systematically vary age?
I think that I'll go away and I'll have a think and I'll come back to you with a good example of an experiment so that I don't...
Just tell me how we can manipulate age.
I'm going to go away and I'm going to think about it. That's the correct answer of someone put on the spot. I can't immediately think of a really good example, so I need to go away and think about it, which is a fair answer, isn't it?
No,
I don't like to just talk out of my arse, because I was told the other day that I'd pulled the whole of the electromagnetic spectrum out of my arse.
Well,
yeah, it's
not
only
really.
fair. I've got some more citations coming up, by the way, so we've got more to look at here. But I will go away and I'll come up with the experiment. I'll come back to you where age is a good independent variable.
So I'll just go back to one of the citations that I've presented. If you're going to say
I need to just click on your screen, so just hang on. Well, I'm not saying age. I'm showing you a citation from a reputable source that says that age can be.
Well, I was going to come. That was my next point. Reputable source. That I was going to question that.
Well, I think it was reputable. I mean, it was the first one I came across. I don't know who it is.
Sure. Well, I've got
looks reasonably reputable.
Yeah, but I've got University of North Carolina at Pembroke, right? I don't know who that is, but given by its university status, I think they might be a university, right? And it is a .edu citation. And it says the independent variable is the presumed cause. It is varied or manipulated by the researcher. So if you're going to presume that age is the cause of something, doesn't matter what, how are you going to vary or manipulate the age of somebody to prove that it was the cause?
So I think this is, again, where you get into your ambiguity about your narrow definitions, which is why it's good that we can go through the rest of the citations that I prepared for you, Anthony, so that we can have a look at them and then we can discuss them. Because I think what you're doing is, you're going through here and you are picking narrow definitions of what dependent and independent variable need to be. Which is why. Well, okay. Well, do you want to look at the rest of the citations I've prepared? Because I took the first 10.
Well, there is an alternative explanation.
I didn't go and pick them like you did here. I just took the first 10 from Google.
There is an alternative interpretation of what I've just done. And it might just be that you're wrong and it doesn't satisfy the scientific method according to University of North Carolina, which we can drop this one if you don't want. We can go to another one and see. I mean, one of the other ones that expressly stated it.
Well, so what have I said? I've said I will come back. Yeah,
but I want you to explain to me now how age can be a cause. How can we manipulate age?
How can I, on the fly, explain something that I can't answer? I've been very fair, and I've said, like most reasonable people do, you know, I'm a businessman in the day, right? When I don't have an answer for something, I don't just make something up. Yeah, what do you think your budget's going to be? 1.6 million. I actually go away and I look at it. Yeah,
I know, but I'm not asking a difficult question. You've brought up
which is why I need to go. Which is why I need to go, because it is a difficult question. I need to come up with a good answer. Because if I do something on the fly, I'll make a mistake, and I don't like doing that.
Okay, now let's kill two birds with one stone. Whilst you're there looking up how age can be manipulated, I want you to also look up at, because it's the same point, just applied differently, how time can be manipulated to prove the cause and effect.
I had a discussion on this today, but again, I don't want to try and busk it. So I will look up age and time. I'll give you two examples of each, yeah, because I had this discussion today, but I want to have a little more think about it. With the
Did you have this on Jose's chat?
I had this offline with some secret people. Rumpus was one of them. Yeah, planning for this moment. But I want to go and, Blue was involved, Blue Marble Science.
Blue Marble, no science. You can't even tie his shoelaces and you're having a conversation about science with him. I don't think you're going to get very far.
Well, yeah, you explain things very well. I managed to understand them when he explains. Can you see the screen? Should we go to the next? Because I took the first 10. Yeah. I took the first 10.
I look forward to these.
Aren't you glad that I prepared these for you, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Let's have a look at You're not screen sharing. Yeah.
Oh, am I not? Do I have to?
No, because I was screen sharing, wasn't I?
Okay, right, hang on. Let's just go back. Here we go. Just copying your methods and playing them back to you.
Perfect.
So this one says the two variables in experiment, an independent variable. Yeah, because I got very upset by this topic, by the way. Yeah, when you. On one of your hangouts when you shared it, which is why I went and did this. Yeah, dependent variable. The bit I've highlighted here is, and the experimenter changes the independent variable. The effect on the dependent variable is observed and recorded.
Yeah, because your dependent variables, that's your observed phenomena, isn't it?
Yeah, no problems with that.
Well, yeah, but how are you using this? Are you agreeing or disagreeing or using this against me? What's going on?
I think this in this example is a reasonable explanation.
Right, so the dependent variable
As they
is
all are,
dependent
but-
on the independent variable. As the experimenter changes the independent variable, the effect on the dependent variable is observed and recorded. Right, so
Keywords
age,
are observed
age,
and recorded.
so it comes back to age and time. How does age and time, in this context, as the experimenter changes the independent variable? Well, the independent variable is the presumed cause. So it says at the top, the independent variable is the variable that is changed or controlled to test its effects on the dependent variable. So with the Cartesian clock or the atomic clock, if the cause is supposed to be time dilation, how do we dilate time to prove cause? And same for the age. How do we manipulate age to prove cause?
So we'll keep going. And by the way, remember the reason I sampled these 10, is because you presented the ones that you have just represented there to me, which weren't maybe the first 10 from Google. You went and selected them, So I was trying to do a very fair trawl from Google of this definition.
Well, I didn't go for the first 10. I went for the best ones that I could
you
find.
went for the ones that proved your point. Yeah.
No, not the ones that proved my point. The ones that were from the most credible
So
citing.
how about this one? How about the third one here, Anthony?
Right, look at where it's from. Blog, prepscholar.com. Right, that's not a credible citation straight away. It's a blog site.
All right, you don't like it.
That could be written by Pete Shea.
All right, you don't like it. I can tell.
It's not as credible as the University of Southern Carolina or Northern Indiana.
You don't like it, okay? Because it says all the changes on
I haven't read it. I'm just no. Listen, it's not that I don't like it. I haven't read it. I haven't formed an opinion on the citation. I'm looking purely at the citation's address, and it's a blog site. Instantly, that tells me that that's not as strong as mine. Before I've even read it.
Well, as I say, I've just used the methods of taking the first 10. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not as good as mine, where I chose.
You don't like it. You don't like it, because it says all changes on its own. Yeah.
And this is from a blog site. So
yeah, I agree. It's probably not as good as university. I do agree with that. Right.
It's definitely not as good as.
This was just a sample. I'm not presenting these as my best 10. I just took 10. Yeah, because I thought your method was flawed. Okay. So here's the next one.
I'm just gonna have to let the dog out for a week. Just give me 30 seconds. Cool.
Dead air is always great on a show. I thought it was only going to be 1 minute.
Dead air.
I know. Here he comes. I thought I heard him coming, but he's obviously now just gone on to another room, hasn't he?
Probably. You know, it's Tony at the end of the day. He's never around for too much longer, is he? He's always doing something. Yeah, I think it's a fair thing for you to say, though, that you're going to come back and,
I think it's a fair thing as well, Renty. Yeah.
Yeah. Get back to it. Bring something more.
Well, rather than just trying to do something of busking, because I think that's part of the problem with this debate. Is it? I think it's good to prepare things as well. Yeah, which is why I did it. Yeah.
I'm back. Sorry, I tried to dilate time whilst I was out, and it ended up going the opposite way. It took longer than I thought.
Dilated your bladder. Yeah.
Yeah. I made a brew.
I'm just going to give
did you? You're joking. That's why it was so long. I could have done with one of them. Anyway, we'll try and get through this bit, and then I can get off and get to bed and make a brew.
Well, just one thing. A couple of shout-outs. B-Ball for Life, thank you very much for the super chat. On a flat Earth, how can 3 people on 3 different continents look south and see the same stars? And also from Aaron... And also from Aaron Armstrong, who says, thank God for Toadie, with an $8 super chat. Thank you very much.
So, Bebo for Life, I will pay you money if you present the evidence that that's actually true real world.
I will pay you $20. Did he? What was his PayPal, Ranty? Was it $20? What was his donation?
$8. $5. $5.
I will pay you $5 if you present your evidence that proves that observers in the two southern halves, wherever, can see the same stars when looking south. I will pay you your money to do that, because that's the evidence I've been looking for forever, and it doesn't exist. So the claim has to be supported with evidence. You've just made a claim. I want to see that evidence, please. So arrange it with Ranty. Let's present it, and let's see that your claim is true.
What's that claim? Just run it by me again, just because I missed it. I was sort of not listening because it had to do with stars. But just again, what was the claim?
Okay, I'll read the super chat once more. Bear with me. On a flat Earth, how can 3 people on 3 different continents look south and see the same stars?
Right, and Anthony's saying he's not seeing 3 pictures of the sky in the Southern Hemisphere looking south and showing the same stars. Is that right, Anthony?
Correct. And we know that doesn't happen.
Really?
Actually, because
Are you
something called
joking?
declination.
Okay. Are you? Okay, I'm very surprised by that. I would think that would be an easy thing to show.
Yeah,
But
it doesn't
then
exist.
There's
That's why I'm
probably
asking him.
something that maybe I don't know about, maybe.
I've been asking for this for years. Show an observer in South America and an observer in Australia. If you get a globe, you'll see that they're pretty much opposite each other.
Mm-hmm.
Demonstrate that one of them at dawn and the other one at nighttime, like in the evening, in winter when it's going to be dark. Demonstrate that they are seeing the same portion of the sky, just rotated 180 degrees, when looking due south, and prove that it is south at the same time, seeing the same stars. And they're not going to be able to do it because we know that.
Just to be clear, because it might help the person who's going to go and get the evidence, yeah. You're not talking about a nighttime picture from South America and then a nighttime picture from Australia, for example, of the same portion of the sky. No,
They've got to be in the same portion of the sky, south, at the same time.
So at the same time, right?
Yeah, one's got to be dawn, the other one's got to be evening.
Yeah,
and obviously,
one's got to be just before dawn, and one's probably got to be late evening, I would think. Otherwise, you're not going to see the stars, are you?
Yeah, you need to be able to see the stars. Obviously, the guy in Africa is not going to be able to do it because he's going to be he's going to be at noon. I don't think you can get all 3 of them at once because they're not.
I think it'd be hard, wouldn't it, because of the daylight distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've got Gleam in the chat who says, "Tell them only 2 will ever be in darkness at the same time."
Yeah, I don't think you
That's
can do
right.
3. Yeah,
I don't
think you can do 2. I think you could probably get 2 in, couldn't you? You could.
Yeah, you could get in their winter. You can get South America and Australia, and you can show that 2 observers looking due south, and then you have to ask the question, well, what's south? So obviously the south issue is going to be governed by a mechanism of some kind. You're gonna have a mechanism to work out, because you've got to prove that you are looking at the same bearing on the horizon that the other guy is and seeing the same set of stars. So you need to know that both the observers are looking in the same direction, and it has to be verifiable.
You could be looking at the Southern Cross, though, couldn't you? Isn't that the same direction with a compass by you? Don't you think?
You could look at the Southern Cross, did you say?
Yeah, Southern Cross, isn't that the one that they've got in the south?
Yeah, but it's not south, is it? It's 60 degrees north, and it's always like... Yeah, it's not. You need to be looking... You need to prove that you're looking at the same stars, but in the opposing position, and you've both got to be looking south. But we already know by declination that they're not looking in the same direction because they've got an adjustment for declination based on what they tell us is magnetic drift. Well, if you have to adjust for declination, magnetic declination, then something else is going on there, because you shouldn't have to make any adjustments for declination, because even if the magnetic area region moves, it's moving relative for both observers, so you should be both looking at the same part of the sky without any adjustments, because you should be looking at the bottom half of a sphere, but that evidence doesn't exist. And I think BM Furbo's joined. Is he the guy that made the super chat?
No. I'll introduce him in a second, but Paul Owen has just done another super chat, £9.99, and he says, £10 the year this video was shot, please. so there you go. So he's putting a £10 in for that. But BM Furball, nice to see you in. Yes, you're going to be doing an experiment.
Thanks for having me.
Experiment with Tony, I believe, or something. But before we get onto that, anyway.
Yeah, Tony.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Tony. We talked a couple weeks ago. I interviewed you, and we discussed having this exact experiment on how to determine what due south is. and I've drawn up paperwork on it. I've sent it out to a bunch of people to evaluate just to make sure that it's sound. I've sent it to you a couple times, but you never responded back. I've got people in Africa.
That was because your last message to me said that you didn't want to associate with anybody that was advising FE Core. So I said, okay, and I clicked the block button, and I didn't speak to you again. That's because you were being a dick.
Yeah, but
So fuck off then.
I did send it to you
so
4
fuck off,
times
dickhead.
before that over about a week.
So fuck off. If you don't want to talk to anybody that deals with anything to do with FE Core, fuck off.
Okay, well, Ranty, if you want me to talk about the experiment that Anthony and I agreed with, I can. It's up to you.
Yeah, we agreed with it until you started being a dick. So once you started being a dick, I was a dick back, and I'm going to be a dick now because you were being a dick. So either fuck off or I'll fuck off. It's one or the other, Ranty. I'm not staying in a chat with this idiot.
Well, BM Verbal, you're welcome to come back.
All right, cool. Later, guys.
Later. Right, so anyway.
Sorry, Ranty, I shouldn't have made you do that.
Not really, no, it wasn't cool. But, you know, I mean,
let me just explain.
Show.
Let me explain. He started dick waving and he said, I don't want to associate with anybody that's engaged with advising FE Core or whatever, some kind of nonsense like that. There's obviously a spat going on with FE Core, Slice Arcane, and a few others. I don't know anything about it. I know there's a spat. It's to do with... I don't even know what it's to do with. But he came on waving his dick around like he was some kind of heavy hitter, and I don't give a shit what he thinks. If you're going to start not threatening me, but being funny with me, then just piss off. That was my reason for being a dick with him. He was just being a dick with me.
Okay, well, let's carry on to where you guys are up to.
Okay, let's move on.
What I'll do is I'll bring BM Furball back on another show, because this is your show, essentially. It's about what's happened with the Globe Light Tour. So I'll try and get him back for next time, and we'll find out what he's going to do.
Yeah, so let's get back on track. Now we've got a Wikipedia citation, which before we read it, and I've not read it yet, but before
could have been changed by people. I agree.
Yeah, we had that conversation the other day, didn't we?
We did, exactly. Yeah. Which,
right, go on.
So I think it's not bad. Note it says mathematical modelling, statistical modelling, and experimental science. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah. Gives all three of those. Potential reasons for variation in the experiment. Any variable the experiment manipulates can be called an independent variable. Yeah, and then it goes into some steps.
Hang on, let me read that. The potential.
Okay, I'll let you read the whole thing.
The dependent variables represent the output or outcome whose variation is being studied. Correct. The independent variables, also known as in a statistical context as regressors, well, we can disregard that bit because we're not looking at statistics, we're looking at experiment, right? Represents inputs or causes.
You might be. I'm looking at the definitions, which are quite broad, but carry on reading.
Well, we're looking about how it applies in experiment, not how it applies in statistical contexts.
No, all mathematical modelling, all statistical modelling. These are all.
Yeah, we're not asked about statistical modelling. We're not asked about mathematical modelling. We're on about experiment, and it is the manipulation of the variable that you think causes the effect.
Experimental sciences.
Yeah, but look at the context it's talking about there. It says
the independent variables. Keep reading. Yeah, you're narrowing it down to experiment. That's fine. Just keep reading.
Represents inputs or causes, that is, potential reasons for variations. Yeah, that's true. It's your presumed cause, right? Mm-hmm. In an experiment, any variable that the experimenter manipulates can also be called an independent variable. I don't disagree with that.
Okay, good.
Do you disagree with that?
No. I wanted to take the first 10 definitions, yeah? And it's interesting what we see in it. We've had age come through. We've come something you haven't liked, because I guess one of them came from a blog spot. And here, we've got this thing called the confounding effect. Have you come across that before? Because I don't think you're going to like it when I tell you what it is. I don't think you're going to like it.
Models and experiments test the effects that the independent variables have on the dependent variables. Yeah, that's the bit you should have highlighted. Models and experiments test those experiments test, models predict. So models and experiments don't test. It's only experiments that test. Models predict. Anyway, models and experiments test the effects that the independent variables have on the dependent variables. Sometimes, even if their influence is not of direct interest, independent variables may be included for other reasons, such as to account for their potential confounding effect. Go on then, click the hyperlink and let's see what it says.
I don't know where it's going to go to. I might risk it might bring up all sorts of web pages and stuff. So I think look, I'll send you this and you can look it up in your own time. I think basically what it's talking about here is the fact that do you remember Rumpus saying that you can have multiple causes which go in a chain of causation? I think it may well be talking about that. Yeah, this confounding effect. Yeah, which is why you can have, multiple independent variables, as they say.
Yeah, but you do understand, though, that if you do have multiple independent variables, you lose the status of the cause and effect relationship, and you end up with a correlation.
I don't think that's the case, no.
That is the case. Look up the complex hypothesis and how it's deduced. Complex hypothesis.
Yeah, I've written it down. Don't worry. On to the next. And remember, this is just, I'm not trying to prove anything here. I'm just trying to take the first 10, yeah, which is pretty boring for everyone else, yeah. But I think it shows a very interesting variation, maybe not as narrow as the ones that you'd picked. Dependent variable is what you measure in the experiment, was affected during the experiment. The dependent variable responds to the dependent variable. It's called dependent because it depends on the independent variable. Yeah, I think you're going to like that one probably. I'd say it's probably not great. It's from LabRite. It's from some lab rats of some sort.
Yeah, but it is from a .edu citation. I don't know what LabRite is, but .edu implies that it's university standard. Doesn't mean that it is, but it indicates that it probably is. So NCSU will stand for, I don't know, a region in wherever it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it conforms to your general view of it. I agree, this one, yeah.
No, it doesn't conform to my general view. It supports the other citations that are presented that are also from EDU citations. So here we've got a dictionary.com, right?
Mm-hmm. And you don't like this one?
The variables that can be changed or controlled in a given model or equation, they provide input which is modified by the model to change the output. Yeah, that's not talking about experiments at all, is it?
Well, what's this example of variables in scientific experiments?
If a scientist conducts an experiment to test the theory that a vitamin... vitamins are going to give you correlation, but anyway, to test the theory that a vitamin could extend a person's life expectancy, then the independent variable is the amount of vitamin that is given to the subject, this is controlled by the experimenting scientist. The dependent variable, or the variable being affected by the independent variable, is lifespan. Well, that will be the predicted... Yeah, so that's basically applying it scientifically in the experiment. I would say that is the application of vitamin, but don't forget, vitamins are not causes. There's too many things with vitamins.
I agree. This is very difficult to prove that a vitamin is going to extend someone's life. There could be many other, unforeseen effects that are going on
in the world of medical world. Right?
I totally agree.
Always got adverse effects.
I totally agree. There could be so many other things that it's a mare's nest. Yeah, I think they very rarely say that the outcome was directly linked. Yeah, I think that's a very simplistic definition. I don't like that one actually. By the way, I don't like this one.
If we remove the word vitamin and change it to any other variable that's not medical, independent variable is the amount of sunlight that a plant will get. Whatever, it's controlled by the experimental scientist.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
The dependent variable or variable being affected by the sunlight is the plant. The growth of the plants. That makes more sense.
I agree. Much happy with that.
Businessdirectory.com, definition independent variable. A factor or phenomena that causes or influences another associated factor or phenomena called a dependent variable. For example, income is a dependent variable because it causes and influences another variable, consumption. What on earth does income cause?
This is a business thing though, isn't it, you see? So they're not talking about the scientific method, I would say here. Because remember, I picked up the first 10 of dependent and independent variable, yeah? Because I think it's important that we show, and I think I probably have through this, that there's a very wide range of definitions here. It's a very broad church, isn't it?
Not really. Not really.
I think it is. I think we found age could be, time could be. Hang on, I just want to get my favourite definition, which is somewhere. Here we go. Should we just have a look at my favourite definition, which I know you're going to argue with, but some of it you'll agree with. Do you just quickly want to read that? This is my favourite.
Scientific observation is the central element of scientific method or process, the core skill of scientist. The core skill
of science is to make observation. You're going to disagree with that, I take it.
Well, it doesn't say that, does it? It says the core skill of scientist is to make observation.
Yeah, I think they just they're probably not very good, or it's been auto-corrected. I took it from here.
And this is your favourite one, right? And it doesn't.
This is. Yeah. I mean, they just it's probably just nonced it when I've cut and pasted it, because you can see I've been fiddling around, because when you paste it from an HTML page, it all goes crazy.
You might want to correct that typographical because it doesn't read properly. But anyway, observation consists.
No, that is the core skill of the scientist.
Or of a scientist, yeah, at least.
That's better.
Observation consists of receiving knowledge of the outside world through our senses or recording information using scientific tools and instruments. Hang on, let me read that again. Observation consists of receiving knowledge of the outside world through our senses. True. Or recording information using scientific tools and instruments. Or recording information. Observation is the recording of information using... Yes, that's a dependent variable. Any data recorded during an experiment can be called an observation. Correct, that's a dependent variable. Measuring the data is going to be your dependent variable. Scientific process or scientific method requires observations of nature and formulating and testing hypothesis. Notice it doesn't talk about space or black holes or quasi galaxy shit like that.
I think we could get into the definition of nature, but yeah, okay. I mean, I would say, okay, yeah.
So the first one, so I hope AB Science is watching this. The first one states observe something, right? So he says that gravitational waves, you can't actually observe them, and he says that they're valid. Well, that one says that you've got to observe something and ask questions about a natural
Well, I think
phenomenon.
you could probably start from point 2. So when I was debating this the other day, but anyway, yeah, you have to put it in an order, otherwise you could put 1 and 2. But it happens to be someone else's definition. I'm trying to find a good one that I can get behind. But carry on.
Yeah. So make your hypothesis, right? So a hypothesis is a cause and effect relationship, and you've got to have an independent variable and a dependent variable that you can actually manipulate.
No, it doesn't. That's where you go wrong. A hypothesis is just a hypothesis. Yeah,
it's a cause and effect. You establish a cause and effect relationship in a hypothesis.
I disagree. You make predictions about logical consequences of the hypothesis.
Okay, so
that could be true. Well, carry on reading through, and then you'll see where you disagree. But
hang on. Let's just go to this. Is if we're going to stop at number 2 because there's an issue.
We don't
just
have
to Wikipedia. Just go to Wikipedia and type in the word experiment, and then see what it says about hypothesis. It's probably one of the better explanations that are simple that we can get to quick. It just says an experiment is a procedure carried out to support, refute, or validate a hypothesis. Experiments provide insight into cause and effect by demonstrating what occurs when a particular factor is manipulated.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that, but you don't have to have it, you see. So look, right, here it is. Hang on, let's just go through slowly, Anthony. Make your hypothesis, right? Okay, so observe something. Yeah, or make your hypothesis. Make predictions.
So in other words,
make predictions.
What causes it?
Make your hypothesis. Just follow the flow. Make your hypothesis.
No.
Make predictions and logical
your hypothesis is simply what causes that.
No. Make predictions and logical consequences of the hypothesis and then test your predictions by... Now, you are saying controlled experiment. I agree with you. That does have a dependent and independent variable. But I'm saying that there's 3 other ways that you can look at the logical consequences of your hypothesis.
These 3 are where what you're doing.
This is where you don't like it. You don't like natural experiment, observational study, or field experiment.
So a natural experiment. So the breeding patterns of birds, for example,
or letting something grow, letting a plant grow, or the height of maize, or something.
Letting something happen isn't manipulating the independent variable, is it?
It doesn't need to be because
it does. All of the citations.
No. That's what we just looked at. Not all of the citations say that.
No, you have to manipulate your independent variable. So by letting things happen naturally.
Okay.
No, listen. So this isn't acceptable if you're going to literally use one citation to support your claim that nature can be an independent
some of my chosen citations
time lapse.
So I just took a sample of 10. I'm giving you my chosen ones now.
Yeah, but you can't allow nature.
Actually, isn't a set sequence of procedures.
Listen, you can't allow nature and the breeding patterns of birds to be considered the independent variable when you don't manipulate it. I'll say no.
People who have not done any research nor ever seen it done sometimes equate the scientific method with a step-by-step hypothesis testing approach. This is a travesty. Dr. John Benter from Theoretical Physics, University of California. Misconception.
Let's read. Hang on, stop. Let's go. Let's read. People who have not done any research or even seen it done sometimes equate the scientific method with a step-by-step hypothesis testing approach. This is a travesty. It makes research seem hundreds of times easier than it really is. In addition, overemphasis on one particular method makes it impossible to understand the history of science. What is he even getting at here? People who have not done any research nor even seen it done sometimes equate the scientific method with a step-by-step hypothesis testing approach. That's exactly what it is. What's his context? Is he talking about research rather than experiment?
So let's look at, here we are. Scientists do not follow a rigid process called the scientific method in their daily work. The procedure list is a myth spread by key stage 6 texts. It's an extremely widespread myth, and even some scientists have been taken in by it, but it doesn't make it any more real. Real scientists use a large variety of methods, perhaps call them methods of science rather than scientific methods. Hypothesis, experiment, conclusion is one of these, and I agree, it is. And it's a very important experimental science such as physics and chemistry, but it is not the only method. It would be a mistake to elevate it above all others. If the scientific method listed in a grade school textbook proves that astronomy is not a science, then the textbook's wrong, not astronomy.
So then we have
This is a chemist saying that, not an astronomer.
do me a favour, go back to the one that you were citing a minute ago.
Well, there's quite a few here. I've come up
I know,
with some
but the
goodies.
one specifically that we were looking at.
This one.
Was it that one there?
Denker?
Right,
Yeah.
and I thought I saw his name being John Denker. Scroll down to the next one down but one. That also is written by John Denker. Let's see what he says. Voltaire famously remarked
I think it's
that the
probably an
holy...
extension on, isn't it? It's probably a next bit of it, actually. Because I've messed
Yeah, but
these
let's
orders
read
up.
what he says.
Yeah, okay.
Voltaire famously remarked that the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. It is an idiomatic expression. In English, there are hundreds of such expressions. An idiomatic expression must never be taken literally, otherwise it crosses the boundary from idiomatic to idiotic. It is important to realize that the scientific method is an idiomatic expression and can be quite misleading. For starters, it ought to be plural, not singular. Scientific methods. Yeah, but nobody cites that. That's a completely... I've never seen anybody refer to the scientific methods. Anyway, it must be... Where is it?
You were here because there is not a single method for doing science, just as there is not a cut and dried method for writing a novel. In fact, scientists use a great many methods. Alas, misconceptions about this are appallingly common amongst non-scientists.
Now stop. So hang on, wait. Go back up to it. Yeah. Now this tells us where Mr. John Denker has his bias. He is a professor at the Institute for Theoretical Physics. He's obviously going to want his theoretical physics to be deemed science. So he's going to have to broaden the interpretations. But that's not consistent with the 10 citations that I gave that all don't support his position. So yeah, you've got one there, but it's in his interest
I've got
about
plenty.
theoretical physics because we know that theoretical physics without experiment is pointless. Would you like a citation?
Science is characterized by the systematic gathering of information through various forms of direct and indirect observations, and the testing of this information by methods including, but not limited to, experimentation.
So it wasn't a rhetorical question, that last statement. Theoretical physics without experiment is pointless. Would you like a citation?
No, I mean, we're trading citations, which is probably a bit boring for people. It's getting quite late. My point being, my work here is done. I think I gave the first 10 and I just took a sample. I wasn't trying to prove anything for the first 10. This is obviously the meat of it, right? Which I think pretty much puts to bed the fact that there is one scientific method and the whole of the QE.
No, it doesn't. So let me go back to screen share, Ranty. Would you mind putting my screen back on? What I'd like you to do for me, Toadie, if you wouldn't mind, is work with me. Let me read through this with me. Bear with me while I find it.
What it says.
Hang on.
It says I go around buggering little boys. I'm not going to read it.
No, don't be ridiculous. I wouldn't do anything like that.
All right.
You're being cordial.
I've been told
no
not to trust you.
So, can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see this?
I can't. No, I can't. Hang on. Yeah, I can.
Branty, are we presenting for the audience? Okay, so this is one of my more interesting citations, because Scientific American's written quite easy. It's written for most lay people to understand pretty easily. I know we struggled before a little bit with the interpretation of what we were talking about with time, and you said you were going to go away and look at that, but perhaps you could tell me what this means.
And I think that's a good answer when one hasn't just got something off the top of your head. I've done obviously a lot of preparation. I think I've made a fair fist of it, but I think I do need to look at a good example for you of time, which I will do.
Sure. But in this article written by Abraham Leo, 2018, Current Science, theoretical physics is pointless without experimental tests. Now, your previous citation was from a Professor somebody Dacker or whatever his name was, and he was a member of the Institute of Theoretical Physics or whatever.
If you noticed, hang on, he was talking about all science, not
as a theoretical physicist.
Well, to be fair, I think sometimes they disappear a little bit up their own arse, though I wouldn't like to be quoted saying that.
No. Listen,
I agree. I like scientific experiments, right?
A theoretical physicist. A theoretical physicist really wants his work to be credited with science because he doesn't want to be classed as pseudoscience. So he's naturally going to stretch and change the boundaries for science and pseudoscience.
I had multiple quotations, though, didn't I? They weren't all just from Danker. Yeah, because I don't necessarily disagree with you. Hang on, because I mustn't shout and wake the whole house up. I'll get into trouble. I don't naturally disagree with you. I think theoretical physics can get quite abstruse. Yeah, but that's why you do have experiments to be done. And even Einstein, obviously, that's why they did the time dilation that I know you've got difficulties with. But that's why they did those experiments, gravitational lensing and so forth, to try to prove some of Einstein's theories.
Let's just be clear. It's not me that has difficulties with those the time experiments.
I thought you did. I thought that's why we're talking about it.
No, it's science that's got problems with them experiments because they're not scientifically valid. They're not conforming with scientific method because nobody can manipulate time.
Can you give me a citation of someone who says that the Nobel Prize winning people who did the time dilation experiment are not conforming to science? Can you show me a citation that says that someone's got a problem with it? A reputable scientist, not just a blogger or something. Okay.
Yeah. So Niels Bohr. Are you familiar with Niels Bohr?
I know exactly who he is. Yeah, I've read one of his books actually.
Yeah, he was the one that said that. He was the one that said no phenomena is a phenomena unless it's an observed phenomena. Where is the observed phenomena of time dilation?
All right, so he's not specifically got a problem, has he, with the physicists who did the time dilation experiment? Just to be clear, he said something, and you're taking that.
Given that he died before, he died before that test was taken, I don't think he would possibly able to be doing that, right?
So I don't want you to take this the wrong way, okay? And we've had a pretty civil exchange. I think one of the big issues that I take with you, and indeed QEU does it an awful lot, is you look back at many things that many people have said, right? Including you and me have said many stupid and probably wrong things and right things as well. And you pick one thing, and then you use that to supposedly cast doubt on a whole area. And I don't think that's actually a valid technique, because one person said he had doubts about one thing. People have doubts all the time. That's how science works. It's an emergence of ideas, and it's a community of people. So the fact that someone said something about something does not completely negate all of the time dilation experiment, which is an experiment, which I believe is what you're asking for. You said theoretical physics needs to involve experiment.
No, theoretical physics needs to present themselves as being science to allow people to basically rape the meaning of scientific method by including stuff that isn't scientific method in with scientific method to give it credibility. Like it says on the article, theoretical physics is pointless without experimental tests. Well, theoretical physics, if you're going to be talking about how black holes cause whatevers, where is the experiment with that? So gravitational waves, for example, CERN has detected gravitational waves, right? There's no observed phenomenon.
LIGO. Was it CERN? I thought it was LIGO.
Or LIGO, whichever, doesn't matter. One of them's observed what they claim is LIGO, is a phenomena, right? And we say, okay, well, let's just say that they've observed this, they've measured something, they've received something that they're calling the gravitation.
Yeah, it took 7 years, and they ruled out every other possible cause, but
let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they've got a legitimate phenomena, right? What's causing it? That's what your hypothesis is. It's a test of what is the cause of the effect. So what's causing the claim that isn't the observed phenomena, that isn't really observed, but we'll give it them anyway? What's causing it? And they say mass, or they say space-time, or they say whatever. And then we say, okay, so how did you manipulate that to prove that it was? And you can't manipulate it, but nobody wants...
This is the thing that I find, we're never going to agree on this, right? So I'll be very clear about what we're never going to agree on. You like to take a quote, to take one of your citations, to use John's approach, which is a very narrow definition of science and indeed experiment and the scientific method. I don't disagree with the definition of independent and dependent variables when you are doing a scientific experiment. But for me, science also includes observation, field experiment, the other things that are mentioned. And observation is a legitimate part of science. Yeah,
observation
doesn't need to
by
always
itself
be a dependent and independent variable. And by the way, the independent variable does not always have to be manipulated by the experimenter themselves, which is probably the fundamental difference. If I had to pick one difference, that's it. You don't need to wiggle it yourself. Other things can wiggle it.
Observation by itself is not going far enough, because the observation of the observed phenomena, like looking at a black hole or looking at a gravitational lens or wave or whatever, that is giving you your dependent variable in your scientific experiment. That's the thing that you're going to prove is being caused by the thing that you claim it's being caused by. So if you're going to claim gravitational waves, that you've detected them, great. What's causing it? And they'll say, well, we think it's this. And whatever that cause is, they've got, once they say what that cause is, they've then got to manipulate it to prove that it is the cause of the effect that they believe that they're observing. Because otherwise, they're just going to mathematically correlate it with bullshit maths, like Tesla said, and dazzle everybody with garb. Well, that's not acceptable, and that's not science.
You're not going to like the next bit either. So how do you come up with a scientific law then?
A scientific law?
Tell me, how does that work?
There's no such thing as a scientific law.
So there's no such thing as a scientific law?
No, they claim. So you've got Newton's laws.
Really? Okay, I think QE might disagree with you, but okay. There's so Anthony says no such thing as a scientific law. That's really interesting.
So
and I genuinely mean that.
Make sure you add the context. Make sure you add the following.
There's some context. Okay.
Yeah. So a law is what nature does, right? So hot goes to cold, for example.
You don't believe in the law of entropy, for example.
Yeah, so it's a law of nature. It's what nature does, right? Laws of science are accredited to people. So, for example, laws of Newton's laws of motion, they're laws that relate to people, right? Just because Newton's put his name to it, don't make it a law. It might be a law of science, but it's only within the confines of science. It's not encompassing everything that we observe. That's why Newton's laws of motion were demonstrated to be wrong by, what's his name? Richard Feynman.
Yeah, I'll have a bit of chutzpah here. I think I'll call bullshit on this, Anthony. I think that you haven't got a way of defining those laws within the scientific narrow method that QE's given you. And I think you've tripped up there, because you can't show me how independent variable work with scientific laws. And I say that scientific laws have been done by observation. That's how they've been derived. Mass observation over huge periods of time.
We have an issue with what you think is a scientific law compared to what I think is a scientific law.
Yeah.
So let's type in scientific law. Let's see what it says for scientific law.
You'll go to alma mater, as he says, of wiki, which could be changed. Let's find a good definition.
I was prepared to disregard Wikipedia, but would you like to use Wikipedia?
Well, let's go there first of all. I've got to go to bed as well. It's really late. I'm going to get into loads of trouble.
So here we go. Scientific laws, or laws of science, are statements that describe or predict a range of natural phenomena. Right?
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
There's a difference between Mother Nature, the law of nature, and a scientific law. They're not the same, but this is comparing and contrast.
Seems to imply they're the same there.
Yeah, but look. So statements that describe or predict a range.
What's the next bit, Anthony? I'm glad you've gone here. What's the next bit say?
A scientific law is a statement based on repeated experiments or observations.
Observations.
Yeah, I think we call that a scientific theory.
I think we call that an own goal. Or observations.
No. We're not calling it an own goal.
No, really? What do you call that?
No, really. I mean, I don't mind being wrong on this bit. If this is wrong, I'll stand by and I'll say, do you know what? You're right.
What do you call it then?
My understanding.
We've been debating, haven't we? You and me. You think it's just experiment, don't you? I think it's observation and experiment. Correct. So that's our positions in a nutshell for everyone, for the audience.
When you say it, what are you referring to?
The scientific method, right? I think scientific laws are within the scientific method, right? Because they're part of science.
It's clear that scientific method requires both observation and experiment. It can't be just experiment. Do you agree with that?
It says a scientific law is a statement based on repeated experiment or observations.
Right, let me rephrase that. I misspoke accidentally. Do we agree that that what did we say then? What were we talking? I've lost it. It's getting late.
I know it is.
We agree that.
Should we come back to this? Because I'm winding you up, and I shouldn't do that. I'm being naughty. So we'll leave it tonight. It's been a really good discussion. I think we've made some real headway here.
I don't want to lose this.
Okay.
Do we agree that science
Well,
is...
I like you. Can we go back to Wiki? I liked your Wiki there.
Yeah, we will, but we need to agree on this bit first. Do we agree that it is observation and experiment rather than observation or experiment?
No, it just said observation or experiment for a scientific law.
Right, but do we agree that science is observation and experiment?
It depends on your definition of and, because you guys have got a tricky definition of and. So I know what it is, Anthony. I know you can do science through observation as well as experiment, or both. Yeah, it's or and.
So in this context, you can see my screen, yeah?
Yeah, I can.
So are you going to say that science is using the word and, but it really means and?
We're going to go back to
or.
the definition of and. I want to avoid that because I don't want any nasty feeling. It's been a good exchange. It's been a well-humoured exchange. I like the definition that you just Googled for scientific law. Yeah.
Okay, well, we can go back to that.
My reading of and is different to yours here, because you will say and means it includes both, right? It needs observation and experiment, which you won't disagree with, of course. And I will say that it can be by observation, or it can be by experiment, or it can be by both together.
So the definition of the word and, used to connect words of the same part of speech, clauses.
I'm not getting a definition of this. I was an English graduate and I've got a master's degree in it. So I mean, as I say, it's this probably isn't a good debate. I think
and doesn't mean
leave
or.
it for here tonight. We can discuss it again. I'm really happy to return to this. I just don't want to get into the and debate about cars and this, because I think what you're doing is you're trying to argue semantics, which is a problem here.
Not really. I'm just trying to.
Because I think when you went to scientific law, you didn't like the word or, so you went to your go-to friend, which was your definition of science, where you know you can try and argue with me the definition of the word and I'm not getting into arguing with you, Anthony, because it's been a good exchange. I don't want to fall out. Yeah,
but if you're going to argue, listen, if you're going to say that science can be observational only, I'm going to disagree with you and fall out with you, because it has to have experiment.
It's good. Let's have a part two. Bring it on. I've got to come back to you about time and dilation and stuff. Yeah, it's quite late. You know, I know you've sort of on the uppers here. You're on the ropes, but I'll let you pick yourself up.
To be honest, it seems fair enough. If you are tired and you've got work tomorrow, you know, we don't want to keep you long.
It's a good time to leave. Exactly.
It is a good time to leave.
It is a good time to leave.
Well, Tony, you can hang on the call a minute, because we have a challenge from Professor Phil Bell.
Oh, is he still in work? No, listen, he can't challenge me if he's in work.
No,
because I asked him to join before.
Just let me finish. He wants to debate you tomorrow, 11 p.m. on this channel.
Which time zone? BST? Yeah. 11 p.m. BST?
11 p.m. BST tomorrow evening for us.
You're on, Professor Bill, or whatever your name is.
That should be very interesting. Right, I'm going to drop now. Thanks very much, Ranty. Love to come again if I'm allowed.
Of course.
Thanks
Just before you go, let's just recap on what you're looking up. You're looking up how age and how time can be independent variables, Absolutely. And you're also going to look up what and means.
I'm not going to do that. I do understand what and means, and you didn't like what the definition of scientific experiment and scientific law were, did you, Anthony? Said or. You got a problem with that word? Look, it says or.
Is it a scientific law is a statement based on repeated experiments or observations, right?
All observations. Or.
Yeah, but you have to have the experiment. If it doesn't have experiment, it's basically pseudoscience. But if you want to go now, that's fine. Don't worry.
We'll come back to this. This is yours and QE's definition. I think the audience understands.
No. Don't worry. I'll bring back numerous citations that require the experiment bit. So don't worry. We'll reconvene this tomorrow. I'm sure.
We'll have a part two at some point. It might not be tomorrow, but sometime this week. I'll look forward to it. Right. I like a good humoured debate. You know, this has been good. So let's not spoil it. And I'll see you again. Cheers, guys. Bye.
See you later, Tony.
Bye.
So, Tony,
if he's going to have a debate with me, normally what we do, Ranty, is we have advanced disclosure so that the other side can see what he's going to be talking about, and then you have a rebuttal back to you. He's going to have to provide his supported arguments so that we know what he's talking about, because I think he's going to be talking about... I'm not even sure what he's going to be talking about. So let's have the advanced disclosure, and I'll provide my response once I've seen what he's going to be talking about, and then we can have a proper disagreement with citation, and we can basically come to a point where we're not going to agree, and we can see who's got the better evidence. I'm absolutely up for that. So, Professor Bill, let's bring it on.
Right, well, he's going to be emailing me, so hopefully I can get a bit of back and forth with him tomorrow, and we can get some of the details nailed down before you actually go live. Massive shout out to Sam Hain again, who's supporting the channel with a good job, Riley. You crushed the toad. $20 super chat. Thank you very much. You crushed the toad. But Aaron Armstrong also sent a super chat before. I think it was another $8. He said, nice work on trying to expand Arwen's life. Very clever. He missed the bit about buying a Bible, though. He was very confused. So obviously that was in relation to me giving him the P900. So I guess we've got a show tomorrow evening then at 11 p.m.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. So is there anything in particular that you know, obviously you've just spelt out what you're looking to get off of him, but you know, what's this argument you're having with him, or?
Well, we've now got the interpretation of the meaning of the word "and," which I honestly didn't think that we would have to have that, but it's because he's got a citation that says experiments or observations, and that conflicts with the "and" requirement in the other citation. That's okay. We've got a Wikipedia entry that we know can be altered by other people.
Has it? I was just checking that. Has it been altered recently?
I don't know.
Would you be able?
Let's have a look.
Would you be able to check?
I don't know. Let's have a look. It's probably Tony that's done it himself just before he's come on today in the last couple of days. I don't. It's difficult for me to interpret what the revision history is because it's hard to see what they are. I'd have to just go back over the Wayback Machine and have a look, I reckon. But I mean, yeah, it's clear. The scientific method requires experiment. You can't do science merely on observations. That's why astronomy is not science. Observational science, you can call it. It's not science. You can call it other. That's why experiment distinguishes itself from other types of observational or research methods because of its requirement of systematic experiment. It has to be there. You have to do that manipulation, and ballers don't like it because it basically allows them to fantasize over unicorn farts up there in space. Well, that's not acceptable. So I look forward to Toady honing his arguments on that point. Because you do have to have experiment. It's the fundamental. It's the linchpin to science. Experiment. It's like that guy says. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. Richard Feynman. Well, you have to do the experiment. Anyway.
So from Professor Phil Bell, who says, "Sorry, Anthony, you will have to come with what you know. I am not disclosing my arguments in advance."
Yeah, that's the format, is it not, Ranty?
Yeah, I mean, it would probably flow a little bit easier, and you'd probably get a more concise argument if you both knew what you were going to be talking about prior, rather than being surprised by something.
Here's the thing, Professor Bill. When we did it with Rumpus, if I apply your rule there, that, sorry, Anthony, you have to come with what you know, I'm not disclosing my arguments in advance. If I took that approach when me and Rumpus had the first hangout, where we did this thing, Rumpus would have absolutely no idea what's going to be thrown his way, and it allows Rumpus to very easily say, well, I'll have to go away and look at that because blah blah blah, like Toady did today. And I'm not using that against Toady, but what I am saying is, if you give me the courtesy of the advanced disclosures, and I give you my retort back, then we're both armed with what the other person's going to say, and it removes the element for somebody to use the I need to go and look at that and come back at you a later date weaseling, because you've had the time. So I would say, no, present your advanced disclosure with the points that you're going to be talking about, allow me to look at them, digest them, and prepare my counter arguments, and then I'll give you my counter arguments back, and you can see what I'm going to say before I say it, and then we can have a proper disagreement. It's not based on what I know. It's just about courtesy to your opponent for the points that you're going to be pulling them apart on, so that we can have a coherent back and forth. I don't want you weaseling out of this saying, well, I haven't got anything to support my assertion here, I'll have to go away and look at it. I want you to demonstrate to the audience that you don't know what you're talking about. If you claim to be a teacher, I don't think you are a teacher. I call him bullshit. So present your advanced disclosure to Ranty tomorrow before the event. I'll give you my rebuttal back based on your points, and then we can have a proper disagreement. Advanced disclosures are a good thing for the audience because we get closure on points, or we're more likely to get closure on points. I think that's fair.
I would think it's fair too, simply because the whole format will flow a lot easier if you already know exactly what you're going to be discussing. If it's, if you're surprised by an argument or a particular piece of technology that you have no knowledge of, or how it works or anything like that, then essentially you're just a sitting duck. You'll be sat there. Yeah,
Ranty, let's not forget what happened with Rumpus. I gave Rumpus my advanced disclosure, and okay, I can understand that he didn't give you yours back because he said he didn't realise he was meant to. But let's not forget what happened on that day. Rumpus cherry-picked the first part of one sentence and completely missed off the second part, which devastated his point, and misled the audience and misled Ranty into a position where basically, if he'd have told the truth, or allowed me to see the citations he was relying on, then it might have been the case that I'd have spotted it. It might not have been the case that I spotted it, but at least I'd have had a chance to respond to a point that was dropped on me on the day and I'd never seen before in the context in which we were discussing it. Why put things to chance when we can have reasonable time to look at stuff, even if it's only an hour beforehand? That time needs to be there, because we don't want people like the Rumpus to be presenting fallacious arguments or dishonest cherry-picked arguments to support their assertions when it can be checked beforehand. I think it's only reasonably fair.
Well, I mean, we can still... he will give you a list of topics, not my arguments. That's fine. I mean, for me personally, if you want to have a list of topics to discuss, that's something. Obviously, obviously arguments in advance, Tony. Are you prepared to just take on the list of topics?
Well, I mean, list of topics is too vague, really. You should be presenting your advanced disclosure of the points you're going to be making, because I don't even know what you want to be talking about. Is it physics generally? Is it some part of physics? Well, I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's not fair to come into it without giving me any warning of what you're going to be talking about, given that you probably know me pretty well. I've never met you. So I want to know what you're going to be talking about, so I can get my arguments and my counter arguments ready, lined up, and then I'll give you them beforehand so you can see what I'm going to give you back, and then we can have a disagreement. But if you don't want to do it that way, fine. Then I'll just utilise I haven't got my citations prepared here. I need more time, Ranty. I'll come back next week, and then the momentum's lost.
Well, we can still do the debate. It shows more about yourself that you're willing to take on an opponent, apparently with the credentials that he has, on the fly, essentially. So, I assume you're not backing down, obviously. But, it would have, I think personally for me, it would have been easier if he had a bit of early disclosure. But, obviously if you don't know anything, and he obviously is very, I wouldn't say indoctrinated, but he's very educated in a particular subject, then you might just have to concede a point and come back to it.
I tell you what, if he's only prepared to give a list of what he wants to talk about, provide the list now, so at least I can have some element of. Because listen, there's no point in going into a blind joust.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get a chance to research it tonight. It's 1:00 in the morning, isn't it? So, Professor.
Yeah, but if he's going to start talking about shit that I know nothing about, I'd rather step out of it before and put somebody else in. I'd rather talk about something I know what I'm talking about. And if the topics aren't stuff that I'm strong on, I'm not going to accept the challenge of a debate with a guy on something that I don't really know much about. Well, so we could save ourselves hassle by having the list now if he's prepared to put the list in.
Yeah, I mean, Professor Phil Bell, he's got my email address. I'm happy to stay awake for another half an hour or so. So if you want to get your clogs on and make your quick list and email it me, ranty@rantyflatearth.com. I'll forward the email to Tony, or send it you on Skype, and then you can start your research then, because then that'll give you 22 hours, something like that, to actually get something done. So he says no problem.
As long as I've got something, because I mean, I pick my arguments, and I know when not to pick an argument, and if I don't know what I'm going into, and I agree to go into it, and it's not something that I'm comfortable with, then it would be wise for me not to engage in the first place, because I'm not going to pick fights that I know that I may not actually win.
Oh, here we go. So, he's mentioning them now. One is gravity.
Perfect. That'll take the whole hangout, that. I'm all right with... Listen, you don't need to do any more lists. We'll be stuck on gravity all night, mate. Gravity's fine. I'll see you tomorrow.
Well, one's for gravity. Let's see if he's got a second one. And then... There we go. So a second one is an intersection of Einstein and Newton.
That's fine. If we're going to be talking about gravity, anything that goes within that context, I'm all right with. So you don't need any more lists. Just keep your conversation to gravity, and then anything to do with gravity is fine. Satellites we won't be talking about because there's no evidence that they're true.
Apparently he works in satellites, so we've been told.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Let's see evidence that you work. Demonstrate how you can communicate with a satellite and prove that it's X amount of miles above the sky. Prove that. Not just like demonstrate.
Yeah, definitely prove it. I'd be really interested to see that information. If this guy is who he says he is, and he can provide that information, well, yeah, let's get it presented. And if he wants to do a little 10-minute presentation on it before you actually debate, excellent. I'd love to see someone come on with those kind of qualifications and do a presentation just like that. So if you can do that, Professor Phil Bell, get yourself a little presentation together and we'll show it to the audience.
Was that super chat before from B-Ball for Life, the one about these stars?
Yes, it was, yeah.
So B-Ball for Life, I'm watching for you. I see you in chat right now. Could you present your evidence that you believe exists for the stars, the way you claimed them before? You said that if we don't live on a ball, how is it possible that we can look in south direction and see the same stars? I want to see that evidence, B-Ball for Life. You have a spanner. You're obviously trusted. Let's see if you've got the nous and the skills, the evidence to present your assertions. Otherwise, I think that spanner should be coming off you for talking out your bottom, to be honest with you. Because I would be on the Ball Earth side if that evidence existed.
Oh, excellent. He will do a presentation. That's superb. Professor Phil Bell, I look forward to seeing that. And Tony, you can be in on the Hangout and you can listen to it live too. So, we can sit back and see what's what. And then we'll take it from there.
I'm a bit confused. Is he doing a presentation or are we having a disagreement?
No, you're having a disagreement. But obviously it will be... He's going to come in and he's going to say to you, this is how satellites are real, I would assume. This is how I can prove they're real. This is how high they are. This is the technology we have. This is what I do. This is my qualifications, etc. And then if he wants to claim that, okay, show what he needs to show. And then if you want to debate on that, you're more than welcome to. And if you feel that you need more research time on that particular subject, then we can always come back to that. But then we can go back to gravity and we can go back to other stuff. Einstein, Newton.
Bob the Fallacy guy's in chat. Concrete Tony satellite presentation. Go concentrate Tony satellite presentation. Yeah, it was in the context of a debate. Bob, is it you that's not concentrating or is it me? I mean, it is like 1 a.m. here in the morning here, so I am getting tired and I am missing things. Like my eyes are telling me, playing tricks on me. But my point is, it was supposed to be a back and forth, not a presentation. So if there is a presentation, I'm guessing I'll sit through that whilst he spews his shite to the audience. Anyway.
Right, okay, so I'll wrap this one up then for today. Thanks for coming on, Tony, and Red Pill Philosophy as well. Both of you showed up, had a little bit of a chat, gave a bit of a shout back to Eddie Bravo for essentially getting you up to this subscriber count now, because you look at you, 3,609. So you've put on, I think it's 12 subscribers since we've done this stream, so that's not bad. That's 4 an hour, isn't it? 5 an hour. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll give you a bell tomorrow and we'll get this sorted out. Professor Phil Bell's going to email me the stuff, etc. So we'll take it from there. So I'll be back tomorrow. Go on.
Shout out to Ute. Professor Bellend is only going to have people feeding him answers anyways. Yeah, so let's just conclude by saying what Toadie's got to go and look at. Toadie's got to go and look at the meaning of the word and, because he doesn't like the word and. He thinks and means or, even though he got a degree in English, I think he said. He needs to go and look into, what are the other things that we were looking explain and give examples of how age and time can be an independent variable, given the requirements are to vary and manipulate it by the observer or the experimenter. So they're the things: time, age, and. I can't believe I'm having to ask him about and. This was like Rumpus's stupid point the other week.
Aye. Well, we'll have to find out if it's been edited at some point. But anyway, I'll schedule a debate for tomorrow, 11 p.m. UK time, BST. So make sure you're here. So that's 2 hours behind what we are now. So essentially this stream's been going for 2 hours. I started this at 11 p.m. BST too. So hope you guys all show up tomorrow for what should be A very, very interesting debate, I have to say. Tony, once again, thanks very much for stopping by, and I'll wrap this one up now. Thanks everyone for the support in the super chats. I did read them all out, I believe, so we've got through that. Thank you very much for supporting the show that way. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.
Ladies, guys.
Bye.